Living with the arrogant queen from high school is, surprisingly, not uncomfortable. Volume 1 by Miss Daziman, translated by Yuki Kitsuniko, audiobook by Masquerade at Masquerade Audiobooks. Chapter 1. The Queen Who Reunites. The school building was wrapped in noise and commotion. The bike parking lot, on the other hand, was deserted. Even now, I still remember it sometimes. A moment I happened to witness, a confession scene. A nervous boy and a lone girl facing each other in a page of youth. "I like you, Hayashi-san." With a slightly shrill voice, the boy confessed his feelings to the girl. From a distance, the boy looked quite handsome. He had a neutral, refined look, was tall and slender. He gave off the vibe of someone who wouldn't be out of place working as an idol for some agency. Any normal girl would probably cry tears of joy if someone like him confessed. But the girl who was being confessed to wore an expressionless, stony face. Then, after letting out a sigh as deep as the Mariana Trench, she swept her bangs aside and said, "Who the hell are you?" Back in high school, there was a queen in my class. Of course, it's not like she literally ruled a country. It was just that she was a bit prettier than most, had a loud voice, and had the kind of personality that could bluntly speak her mind. So much so that you'd wonder if she had any concept of sincerity or consideration when responding to someone who'd mustered the courage to confess. Eventually, people started calling her the arrogant queen. Well, anyway, that was back then. It's been about 3 months since I moved to Tokyo for college. Today, like usual, I was working my part-time job at the convenience store. The late-night shift pays better than during the day. Plus, I don't have to worry about it overlapping with my university lectures. The only downside is that I get hit with an overwhelming wave of sleepiness during class. This store is in a residential area, even though it's technically in the city, so there's barely any foot traffic at night, which is why it was surprising when someone actually walked in. A woman, a young woman at that. But she was wearing plain gray sweats, completely unadorned. Honestly, about half the female customers who come in at this hour are dressed like this. During the day, you'll see women stop by in full makeup, frilly skirts, or shirts with low-cut necklines. But at night, probably because they're just about to go to bed, it's not exactly a feast for the eyes. Just grab what you need and get out already. Grumbling internally, I watched her through the break room's security monitor. Contrary to my wish, she headed straight for the magazine rack and started browsing. Looked like this might take a while, but maybe the magazine wasn't that interesting. She soon started wandering around the store. Daily necessities. Snacks. Then she tossed a bento into her basket and made her way to the counter. Here we go. I let out a groan like some old man as I got up from my chair. The pay was decent, but juggling college during the day and work at night was wearing me out. I had increased my shifts thinking I could handle it, but now I was starting to think I'd better cut back next week. With that in mind, I headed to the counter. The woman standing there was absent-mindedly looking into her basket. I hadn't been able to tell through the monitor, but now that I was closer, I realized this woman was really pretty. Long, glossy black hair, long eyelashes, high nose bridge, small lips. Her figure was hidden under the sweats, but the way she twirled her hair with her fingers and the slightly melancholic look on her face made her look like a model. Actually, she looked kind of familiar. Or maybe not. One thing I'd learned from working at a convenience store is that even these everyday places have their share of regulars. So maybe I just rung her up a few times before. That was about the extent of what I thought, and I focused on scanning her items. Beep, beep, just as I was scanning the barcodes. Yamamoto. Her voice was slightly husky, not something you'd expect from a young woman. It's an old-fashioned way of thinking, but I've always believed women are meant to be graceful, charming, and composed. So to me, a voice like that would normally be a strike against her, but what caught my attention even more was that her voice sounded familiar. Wait, how does she know my name? I looked up from the items and raised my head. I took a long look at the woman standing in front of me. No mistaking it, she was beautiful. But she had that same sullen expression. And that face, I'd seen it before. The voice, the face, and that blunt attitude. I hadn't recognized her because of the sweats, but I knew this person. We'd met before. Before I moved to Tokyo back in high school, we were classmates. Hayashi. Yeah, long time no see. Hayashi Megumi. Back in high school, we were in the same class at some countryside school. That sullen look, that commanding voice, and now that well-proportioned figure hidden under sweats. The queen I'd just been reminiscing about, it was her, none other than my high school classmate. You live around here. We weren't particularly close in high school. I could count on one hand how many times we talked. I never felt compelled to start a conversation, and I'm sure she felt the same. Honestly, I thought she hated me, and yet here she was, chatting with me pretty casually. Yeah, in an apartment nearby, you too. Yeah. Something like that. I'd heard through the grapevine that she had moved to Tokyo for university too. Still, to think she lived nearby. Honestly, I wasn't thrilled. What university are you at again? K University. Wow, impressive. Guess you were smart. I just studied my ass off. What about you? Huh, I'm asking what university you go to. I finished scanning her items and looked at her with mild disbelief. Hayashi looked down like the question genuinely bothered her. No need to make such a sour face. It's not like I'm going to show up at her campus or stalk her. I was just asking as part of the conversation, the same way she asked about me. If anything, I'll probably forget this whole thing the moment she leaves the store. M University. Want a bag? Yeah. I added 3 yen for the bag and prompted her to finish the transaction. While she was putting money into the machine, I started bagging her items. You still see Kasahara? I asked, Kasahara her best friend back in high school. Nope. Hi. You two used to be close. Well, in the 4 months since graduating high school, I'd already lost touch with more people than I could count. It's only natural. Early college days are the time you spend the most energy forming new friendships. She was probably busy with that too. How's university life? It's all right, you. The fact that I'm working the night shift should tell you everything. I'm thriving. Which is it? Don't say it in such a confusing way. With an exasperated look, Hayashi snapped at me. Come to think of it, she used to make that same annoyed face back in high school whenever I cracked jokes like this. She probably doesn't like evasive ways of speaking. Of course, I never meant to dodge anything. It's just, I've always come off as someone easy to misunderstand. I talk like this because I want people to find me approachable. And yet, for someone who greeted me so casually earlier, she clammed up the moment I asked about how things were going. This might be one of those cases where university life isn't going well. Honestly, I didn't expect that. Because she's pretty. Well, that's part of it, but that wasn't the only reason I felt that way. Back in high school, everyone called her the queen, but I never really saw her like that. It's not like I liked her or anything. Though I suppose I didn't exactly not dislike her either. Anyway, I never thought of Hayashi as anyone particularly special. I just always figured she was a gutsy, boyish kind of girl. She might have been called a queen, but it's not like she was tyrannical or anything. She just had a sharp tongue, hated dishonesty, and had a short fuse. That's the impression I had. Wait, isn't that basically a tyrannical queen? I packed up your stuff. Emma. Hayashi reached for the bag I'd packed her items into, and in that moment, I saw it. Her wrist, exposed for a second beneath the sleeve of her sweatshirt. Her soft skin had been hidden under that long sleeve. Don't get the wrong idea. I'm not the kind of guy who gets all hot and bothered just from catching a glimpse of a girl's skin. If anything, I find it off-putting when girls I barely know flash skin or touch people too freely. And besides, it was just a wrist. Not cleavage or legs, just a wrist. And it was only for a split second when she happened to reach out. Even so, I found myself flinching instinctively. Peeking out from her sweatshirt sleeve, Hayashi's wrist. It was covered in painful-looking bruises. Not just one, a lot. She noticed me looking. Her face twisted slightly, clearly shaken. Did you hurt your wrist or something? The reason I asked was because the girl who used to hate injustice more than anyone, who could stand up to anyone without hesitation, was now avoiding my eyes, visibly scared, right in front of me. Hayashi's face had literally frozen in fear. Injuries aren't really something you need to hide. If anything, when people see them, they'll treat you more gently, ask if you're okay. I've always thought if you're hurt, it's something you should be open about. But Hayashi was hiding it, like it was something she couldn't let anyone see. Even now, she was using her other hand to pull down her sweatshirt sleeve, desperately trying to conceal the bruises from me. I was hit. By who? My boyfriend. Only now did I notice how unnatural things seemed. It was still the middle of summer. Even at night, it's too warm to be wearing a long-sleeved sweatshirt. And yet, here she was, wearing one. And now, I knew the bruises on her wrist were from her boyfriend hitting her. A bad feeling crept into my mind. As someone who graduated the same year, who studied in the same class as her, I really didn't want that thought to be true. Could it be that under that sweatshirt, things were even worse, covered in painful bruises? Where's your boyfriend today? He's at home. At home. We live together. You're moving way too fast. Ish. She clicked her tongue, frustrated, like she'd just revealed something she didn't want anyone to know. That she already had someone she lived with, just a few months after graduating and moving to Tokyo. That alone was a shock. But more than that, I felt this overwhelming urgency. Come stay at my place tonight. Hi. Don't glare at me like that, you're scary. The way Hayashi stared me down reminded me of high school. Her gaze was still just as intimidating, her beautiful face twisted into a scowl. I get it, I won't do anything. If you can't trust me, I'll just stay at a net cafe tonight. I'll give you the key. She kept glaring. Sound fair? Just don't go home tonight. Actually, just don't go back at all. Talk to your parents, go stay at your family's place. I can't. Why not? I was disowned. Why? When I told them I was moving in with my boyfriend, they got really mad. So this is what it means to be at a loss for words. The image of her, as the queen from high school, didn't overlap at all with the person standing in front of me now. She looked like a stray kitten, trembling in a cardboard box on a rainy day. My parents said, if that's how it is, we're not paying for college anymore. So I dropped out. Just don't go home tonight. After a brief pause, I said that to her. Everything she'd told me so far had been shocking, and I had a horrible feeling that there were even worse things I hadn't heard yet. I'll grab my key. I'll tell you the address then. I went to the locker room and came back to the register right away. I couldn't shake the feeling that if I gave her too much time, she'd run off. Here. I held out the key to Hayashi, but she didn't take it. She stood there, fiddling with her hair, eyes downcast. I don't need the key. What? I'll wait. Hi. I'll wait until your shift ends. Looking closer, I realized she was trembling. It finally hit me, she'd been scared this whole time. Even someone as headstrong as Hayashi had once been, now wanted to cling to someone, anyone, because of how afraid she was. Just about an hour left. Read a magazine or something while you wait. Outside, the sun was rising, the sky growing brighter. I was glad she only had to wait an hour. But then it struck me, why wasn't her live-in boyfriend worried about her being out alone this late? Back in high school, it's not like we were ever close. If anything, I thought she didn't even like me. After graduation, we were supposed to go our separate ways. And yet, here we were, crossing paths again like this, and I now knew the truth of her situation. This anger building up inside me, what is it? I pushed the feeling down and got back to work. Eventually, my shift ended. Thanks for waiting. After my shift at the convenience store ended, I called out to Hayashi, who had been waiting inside, reading a magazine. She put the magazine back on the shelf, and I led her back to my place. Section, so this is Yamamoto's place, huh? Pretty neat, right? It just looks like you don't have anything. Well, that's one way to put it. I'm not the type who needs a lot of stuff. If anything, I'd rather keep it simple than clutter the room and make cleaning a hassle. As a newly minted college student, I don't need luxury either. That's why the room looks like this. Anyway, have a seat. I'll get you some barley tea. Thanks. I opened the fridge, pulled out the barley tea, poured it into a cup, and handed it to her as she sat down on the floor cushion. While Hayashi drank the tea, a somewhat awkward silence settled over the room. It hit me just then, this was the first time I'd ever brought a girl over to my place. Actually, since around middle school, I'd barely had any female friends, let alone hung out with one. My chest kinda hurts. Get it together. The reason I brought Hayashi here today, it wasn't because I planned to pounce on her. I just wanted to protect her from her boyfriend. Besides, even if I did try something, I'd probably lose a few lives in the process. Hugh. Finishing her tea, Hayashi let out a deep breath, looking calmer now. I felt like I could finally get a sense of how worn out she really was. Can't believe a day would come when I owe you a favor. I don't see it that way, I just did what anyone would. Well, the timing was lucky. Hayashi seemed to be swallowing down a lot of thoughts, but that's all she said. Timing, huh? I tried to calmly think through her situation. Sweatshirt in the middle of summer, bruises on her wrist, and they were caused by her boyfriend. What she was dealing with now was what people call domestic violence, DV. We just needed a little time apart to cool down. Who exactly needed time to cool down? Well, no need to guess. I think he just had a rough day. She must be talking about her boyfriend. If that's the case. You mean your boyfriend? Yeah, he doesn't usually hit me or anything. He just gets really irritable when something goes wrong at work. I need to be better at supporting him, you know. Never thought I'd hear you say something like that. Shut up. People change, you know. Hayashi shot me a glare. Whether that change is good or bad, I can't say. I mentally went over everything she'd said, trying to grasp the full picture. From what I could tell, the reason she agreed to come with me was to create space for both of them to cool off. The bruises were from a moment of weakness, just a slip-up. If that was true, then me stepping in the way I did was pointless. If that was true, then maybe I shouldn't have told her not to go home. If it was true, you should stay the night. Really? That okay? Sorry. We're supposed to help each other out in times of need. You're saying stuff I never would have expected from high school you. In contrast to how she glared at me earlier, Hayashi now gave me a teasing smile. I stayed quiet. I hadn't changed at all. But if it seemed like I had, at least in her eyes then. Mind if I use the shower? Go ahead. Got anything I can change into? Only guy stuff. That's fine. Use the bed when you sleep. I'll take the floor. Sorry. Outside, the sky had already brightened. Today was Sunday, which meant no classes. Normally on Sundays after a late-night shift, I'd sleep until around noon. Judging by how willingly she agreed to stay, Hayashi probably hadn't slept before we met either. The walls between the bathroom and the room were thin. The sound of the shower drowned out the TV in my room, reaching my ears clearly. Weird, it's just my room, but I can't relax, I'm all jittery. This felt way too much like I was aware of Hayashi's presence. Wait, I guess I am. Feeling refreshed. That's so. Her damp hair, her flushed cheeks. Even in a t-shirt, it was obvious she had a full chest. For some reason, I found myself scowling. Probably because I didn't want her to realize what I was feeling. I ended up regretting giving her that t-shirt and those shorts. Because now I could see it, besides her wrist, there were other bruises scattered across her body. Hayashi seemed to notice me looking. Yeah, it's bad, huh? She said it casually, like it was nothing. All of them from your boyfriend. Yeah, it really is awful. Right, like seriously, he's such an idiot. Hey, Hayashi. She looked at me with cold eyes. Looks like some of those bruises are still healing, too. So what? Her face twisted, but not with fear like earlier. This time, it was pure disgust. Drop it. That was what she was clearly telling me. If I were in her position, I'd be done with that boyfriend by now. Getting hit like that, hurt like that, it's unforgivable. That's what I'd think. But judging from what she's been saying, Hayashi doesn't seem to feel the same way. Is it lingering attachment? Or dependence? I can't tell what she's really thinking. Honestly, I'm not even sure I understand the difference between attachment and dependence. In any case, if she doesn't want me poking into her relationship, that's fine. Even if she ends up going back to him later, that's her decision. She doesn't think she's making a mistake. If that's the case, then offering her an alternative probably won't change her mind. I just think someone who keeps hurting people like that isn't someone you should be with. Still, just because she might not want to hear it doesn't mean I won't say it. What would you know? Her scowl deepened. I don't know how you feel, I'm just telling you my opinion. I didn't ask for your opinion. And I never said you had to listen to it. Then why say it? For myself. I shrugged, and Hayashi gave me a look of disbelief. If something happens to you down the line, people around you are going to come to me, asking why I didn't stop you. And whether I can say, I tried to, or not changes how people see me, doesn't it? You care what people think. You don't even have any friends. Which is exactly why they'll say whatever they want about me later. People love having a justification. It gives them the excuse to vent all their stress onto someone else. Online dogpiling and cancel culture. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Strangers jump into a scandal that has nothing to do with them and tear people apart like it's a sport. Sure, the person being targeted usually isn't completely innocent, but those matters should be settled between the actual parties involved. The rest of the world has no right to interfere. And yet, those people attack like fish finally tossed back into water, completely shameless. It's pathetic. But whatever, that's not the point. What I'm trying to say is, people are selfish creatures at the end of the day. And stress from messing up at work. That's the reason your boyfriend hits you, right? But ask yourself, do his actions really have anything to do with you? You're just being used. Hayashi looked down in silence. Still, if you want to go back to him, I won't stop you. If you're willing to support someone even when they hurt you, then that's pretty admirable, really. Shut up. If that path destroys you, I still think you deserve praise for it. But the strange thing is, no one's going to praise you, even if you do something not everyone is capable of. Heroes who sacrifice themselves to defeat a demon lord get celebrated by the masses. But you, even if you destroy yourself, no one's going to thank you. Not even your boyfriend. What I wanted to say was this. From an outside perspective, Hayashi's actions simply don't match the price she's paying. It came off pretty sarcastic, yeah. That's just my lousy personality showing. In hindsight, maybe not the smartest way to talk to someone already upset, but I don't know any other way to speak. In short, I did everything I could. If she still won't listen, then there's nothing more I can do. I don't like that. Surprisingly, Hayashi wasn't the kind of person to lash out in a rage. I thought for sure she'd storm out of the apartment in anger, so I was honestly taken aback. Letting out a long sigh, she brushed her bangs back and flopped face down onto my bed. I'm sleepy now. Her voice was muffled against the pillow. Get some rest, take your time, there's no rush. You sound so enlightened. No wonder you're not popular. Is enlightenment unappealing now? So that's why I'm not popular. Just learn something new. But learning something doesn't mean I've fixed anything, so I'll probably keep being unpopular forever. What a shame, I'm turning off the lights. Even if I do, the sun's already up and the room's bright. It's just a comfort thing. Hayashi didn't respond. Maybe she'd already fallen asleep. I hit the switch with a click and lay down on the floor. I lay there for a while, fiddling with my phone. Eventually, I got bored and closed my eyes. But maybe because there was a girl in my room, or maybe because I was on the floor. Either way, I couldn't sleep. Hey. After a while, Hayashi's voice came from the bed. I'd thought she was asleep. Wanna do it? My heart jumped, but I stayed quiet. What exactly did she mean? I wasn't going to ask. I'd taken her in on a whim. If that whim led to something like this, then I'd be no better than the guy I criticized. She didn't say anything else. Just teasing, maybe, or so I thought, until I suddenly felt warmth against my back. Jaya. She hugged me from behind, and I let out a loud scream. I scrambled to push her off, but Hayashi clung tightly to me, arms locked around my body, like she was determined to show that her earlier words weren't a joke. I tried to move my legs, but the thought of hurting her held me back. I couldn't bring myself to use force. Or maybe there was another reason I couldn't. Before I knew it, I was biting my lip, trying to stay composed. The softness, the warmth pressing into my back, it wasn't unpleasant. In fact, I realized I kind of liked it. In that moment, keeping my cool was the best I could do. What are you doing? My voice trembled. Ahaha. So you were awake. You did all this just to check if I was awake. I only hugged you, you know. And who gave you permission to hug me? You need permission for that. Maybe not from me, but from your boyfriend. Even if he treated you horribly, he's still your boyfriend. But I knew better than to bring him up now, so I bit my lip and held my tongue. You're a virgin, aren't you? I'm not. Liar. I stayed silent, trying to act all tough. It's the first time I've ever thought you were kind of cute. Shut up. I tried to forcibly pull Hayashi off me, but in doing so, I realized she was trembling. Earlier, she'd snapped at me for trashing her boyfriend, but deep down, she must have already started to doubt him. At first, he wasn't like that. He was kind, considerate. He'd usually go along with whatever selfish thing I asked for. It all changed after we started living together. It was probably living together that let his true nature show. I didn't say anything because I knew that whatever I said now would only hurt her. It was awful. Not just after bad days at work. Anytime he was in a bad mood, he'd hit me. I guess you'd say his temper's just freakishly short. It always felt like, really? You're mad over that? Like, what's wrong with you? Her grip around me tightened. Whenever he was in a mood, he'd come home and say the same thing. "You've got some nerve looking so relaxed when you don't even earn anything." Then, when I'd say I wanted to work, he'd yell at me, "What could a dumb high school grad even do?" It was just one thing after another. "You really held on through a lot." Huh. The words slipped out of me before I could stop them. My face flushed. I couldn't believe something like that came out of my mouth. But it just did on its own. Watching her go through all this, dropping out of college just months after high school, disowned by her parents, and now enduring abuse from her boyfriend, I couldn't help it. "What did you say?" Not repeating it. "Aw, come on, say it again." "I'm going to sleep." "Oh, haha, fine, fine. Who do you think you are, talking like that?" I almost said it, but then figured we'd just fall into another pointless back and forth, so I shut my eyes instead. "It's been a while since someone told me I did a good job." She whispered it right in my ear. "You really did, though. You've been through so much. When we wake up, I'll talk to her about what comes next. But for now, I needed to rest and shake off the exhaustion from my shift." Chapter 2. The Queen with Many Worries. Around noon, I woke up to the ache in my body from sleeping on the floor and nearly jumped. Right in front of me was a girl, dressed in just a t-shirt and shorts, showing a surprising amount of skin. Then I remembered everything that had happened before I went to sleep. The girl was Hayashi Megumi, my classmate back in high school. We had unexpectedly reunited during my late-night shift after I moved to Tokyo. She was, in a word, a victim of domestic violence. It had only been a few hours since we met again, and just now I noticed her hair, which had been a light brown in high school, was now dyed black. Or maybe she had just redyed it. Well, that wasn't really important. "You've changed." Alone with my thoughts, I found myself feeling overwhelmed by the cruel passage of time. The girl sleeping in front of me, who was just a high schooler until recently, was now living with someone and suffering through DV. She was experiencing things that our carefree high school days couldn't have prepared us for. Of course, there wasn't a shred of envy in me. If anything, I pitied her. And yet, I couldn't help but feel left behind. Why, though? It's not like we were close in high school. Still, long eyelashes, a peaceful, innocent sleeping face. Her shirt slightly lifted, revealing her slim waist. How defenseless could someone look? The girl who used to glare daggers at me back in high school, the so-called queen, was now like this. I never could have imagined it. Feeling a bit hungry, I got up and decided to make lunch. The smell of food would probably wake her up too. I opened the fridge and decided on yakisoba. I started chopping the ingredients and stir-frying the noodles and veggies. NNH. "You're up. Does your body hurt?" She really did wake up just from the smell. I kept focused on the cooking as I spoke. Hayashi sat up, rubbed her eyes with a fist, yawned with a loud "phew-ah," and blinked around the room groggily. "Ah, right." She scratched her head. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Morning, Yamamoto. My body's sore all over." "I told you to sleep in the bed." "Geez, don't be so petty. A guy shouldn't sweat the small stuff." "You're the one complaining your body hurts," I nearly said. "Well, I did ask if she was in pain, so I guess this one's on me." "Yakisoba." She was suddenly standing behind me. "Yep. Didn't know you could cook." "Just a bit. After living alone for a few months, you pick up the basics. Really just the bare minimum, though. It's almost ready, so just wait a sec." "You sure?" "Yeah. Ahem." A few minutes later, I plated 2 servings of yakisoba and brought them into the room. "Let's eat." We put our hands together in thanks and started eating. "Not bad. Tastes just like the store-bought stuff." "Tastes good." "Thanks." I responded while pulling out my phone and tapping away. Ever since I started living alone, no one was around to scold me for using my phone at the table, so I acted like usual. "You've got terrible manners." But today, there was a guest in my home. I muttered an apology and set my phone down on the table. "All done. Thanks for the meal, it was good." "Well, I just followed the instructions on the back of the package." "Oh, come on, I'm trying to give you a compliment. Don't ruin it with that attitude." Sorry." I still hadn't shaken off my impression of her from high school, so I apologized, reluctantly, because she still scared me when she got mad. 2 now empty plates sat on the table. I stood up to wash them. "I'll do it." "Why, you're a guest." "It's to repay the food and a place to stay." "A debt I didn't ask for." "Shut up." She'd already thanked me yesterday when I let her stay so she could cool her head. No matter how you looked at it, she felt some sense of obligation for what happened. From my perspective, she'd already been through more than enough, and I just wanted her to relax while she was here. But if she was going to repay me in weird ways like last night, then I'd rather just let her do the dishes and get it out of her system. So, this time, I let her clean up in peace while I pulled out my phone again. I had something I wanted to look up. All done. Thanks. Hayashi sat down across from me at the table. Facing her again brought back memories of what happened before we fell asleep, and I couldn't quite meet her eyes. Seriously, even if she was scared, she shouldn't use me as a human body pillow. And provoking me like that? Please don't. I wanted to tell her flat out, you're lucky it was me. If it had been someone else, you could have been in real trouble. I really wanted to scold her about that. Of course, I didn't have the guts to say any of it. Feeling a bit clearer now. I asked her, yeah, I guess. Then let's talk. Though with my personality, you know how this is gonna go. In the end, it's all up to what you want to do. I said this yesterday too, but you really talk like someone who's seen it all. Like you've lived twice. Wrong. Well, yeah. It's not like people living twice actually exist. That's not what I meant. The way you said it made it sound like, if you could live twice, you'd get better at life or be able to enjoy it more. That's how it came off. Not entirely wrong, is it? Isn't that true? No. I answered immediately. Even if you lived a second life, I can say this with certainty. If your mindset doesn't change, your life will end up exactly the same. Why? Because when you hit a turning point you've already experienced before, if you haven't changed internally, you'll make the same choice again. Then why do people believe a second life would be better? It's because they think their mindset would be different. Whether Hayashi was listening to my lecture or not, I had no idea. The most important thing is going through experiences that can change your mindset. And to have those, you need to face things head-on without running away. If you can do that, then even without a second life, things can still turn out great. Hey. Vague response, well, whatever. What I'm saying is, you need to face your situation properly. Face my situation. Yeah, don't run from it. Look at your circumstances objectively and figure out what you want to do. If you take the time to really think it through, you'll never regret your decision. Can you really say that for sure? Hayashi lowered her gaze, her voice filled with uncertainty. Even if you try to see things objectively, your personal feelings still get mixed in. And when you're trying to come to a decision, it's easy to get swept away in a moment of weakness. Saying you'll never regret it, it's just not realistic. It's not impossible. It is. You'll be fine. Why do you get to say that? Simple. I smiled, because that's what I'm here for, right? With a smile that didn't really suit me, I said it plainly. I couldn't come up with one of my usual roundabout phrases, so I just said it straight. But really, that was the core of what I wanted to say. It's not complicated. If you're scared to face it alone, lean on someone else. We're human, we can think, and we can talk things through with others. That's our privilege, isn't it? That's awfully reliable of you. Doesn't sound like you. It's not reliable at all. In the end, I'm just getting involved for my own selfish reasons. What's that supposed to mean? It wasn't a joke, but Hayashi gave a soft chuckle. It was the brightest smile she'd shown since we reunited yesterday. Then let's think it through together, what you should do from here on out. First, it'll be tough, but can you tell me everything that's happened with your boyfriend? Okay. Then Hayashi talked. For several minutes, she told me about everything that had happened since she moved to Tokyo, sometimes throwing in light jokes or sarcastic remarks. But to be honest, none of it was funny. How she met her boyfriend. How she was disowned by her parents. How they started living together. Then the violence, and more violence, and more violence. It was horrifying. Just imagining it happening to me made my skin crawl. No matter how playfully she tried to present it, there was no way to laugh along. But you know, he wasn't always mad. He'd apologize too. He'd say, I'm sorry for hitting you out of nowhere. It must have hurt. I won't do it again. Please forgive me. He'd beg like that every time. There's something called the domestic violence cycle. Abusers tend to follow a pattern. Periods of violence, followed by remorse and self-loathing, and then phases where they're irritable over the smallest things. Hayashi looked like something clicked. You sure know a lot. I looked it up earlier. Earlier, when? While you were doing the dishes. I see. She sounded impressed and nodded in understanding. Have you ever talked to anyone else about this? You're the first. Given her circumstances, I guess that made sense. But thinking about who she was in high school, it still felt strange. I understood why she couldn't turn to her parents, but she'd had plenty of friends. Unlike me, wasn't there anyone she could have reached out to? Hey, what happened to your phone? When we met at the convenience store and came here, Hayashi only had clothes and her wallet. These days, a phone is practically essential, so where was hers? I don't have one. You don't. He said, you've got me, so what else do you need? He broke it. Hayashi nodded silently. All my friends' contacts gone. He won't let me get a new one either. I was totally cut off. I see. The situation was even more serious than I expected. My voice, which I had tried to keep upbeat, dropped in tone. Her boyfriend's obsession and control were horrifying just to hear about. I think I get the picture. Sorry for making you talk about it. You actually apologized. If I can't apologize for making you uncomfortable, then I might as well be your boyfriend. Ah, true. Do you really get it? Hehe. Who knows? Hayashi gave a strained smile. Maybe it was because she'd grown numb to being abused, or maybe it was just that she was calmer now. At least she didn't look like she was mentally breaking down. If anything, that was the one small relief. All right, let's talk about what to do next. My opinion hasn't changed since last night. Honestly, I still think you shouldn't go back to him. You need to cut him off completely, as soon as possible. I said it clearly. The same thing I told her last night. Back then, she pushed back on it. But now, I felt uneasy, unsure how she'd respond this time. Would she agree with me? Back when I first told her, I was thinking about how others would see it, how I'd be blamed if anything happened to her and I hadn't said something. I thought if I made it clear that I tried to stop her, I could avoid that kind of responsibility. But in truth, there's no one who would even find out we'd met again. So who would hold me accountable? No one but me. If something happened to her, I'd never forgive myself. That guilt would stay with me forever. Now that I knew just how deep and dangerous her relationship was, I couldn't look away anymore. Even if she ended up hating me, even if I had to use harsh words, I had to get her to cut ties with that man. And then Hayashi spoke. Well, yeah, he hits me sometimes, but he also has a kind side. There are cute things about him too. That's just the kind of person he is. I see. But Hayashi gave me a calm, gentle smile. You're right. In the end, he only used me for his own sake. He manipulated me, controlled me, tried to keep me all to himself, like he was some kind of king. Hearing you say it out loud finally made me realize. So then, I'm going to break up with him. I don't want anything more to do with him, ever again. I let out a breath of relief. But the sense of calm lasted only a moment before I turned serious again, looking Hayashi straight in the eye. There's one more thing I want to bring up. Will you hear me out? What is it? It's about the obsessive behavior of abusers, how they don't let go. Basically, Hayashi's boyfriend had shown extreme possessiveness up until now. So it was obvious what he'd think if the object of that obsession suddenly disappeared from his life. I'm saying, it's not impossible that your boyfriend might hold a grudge and try to get back at you. Honestly, I didn't think he'd just accept a simple, let's break up and move on. The moment she said that, I wouldn't be surprised if he lashed out again. But at the same time, I didn't want Hayashi to live her life constantly running from him without ever officially ending things. I see. That's why I've got a proposal. The idea is to make your boyfriend think, I don't want anything to do with her anymore. What? Don't tell me you're thinking of beating him up or something. That's way too extreme. I was dumbfounded by how she immediately jumped to violence, but continued. There's somewhere I want to go. Where? The hospital and the police. The police. Hayashi looked stunned. I don't understand how she could think of something like a lynching, but not consider going to the police. Let's file a report and press charges. If the police are watching him and he ends up with a criminal record, even he won't be able to come near you again. Wait a second. Do we really have to go that far? Apparently, even if she could imagine roughing him up, the idea of bringing the police into it made her uneasy. Your body's covered in bruises, he cut off your contact with your friends, he's the reason you were disowned by your parents. He destroyed your phone and left you completely isolated, just to make sure you had nowhere to run. After all that, you still don't think this is something to take to the police. I laid it out clearly, exactly what she had been subjected to by her boyfriend. I figured that by this point, she'd understand. That what had been done to her wasn't normal, that it was wrong, that it was something worth involving the police over. But Hayashi didn't look convinced. I decided to wait for her response. It made sense she'd hesitate, it was someone she'd lived with. But no matter how long I waited, she didn't say anything. I thought you'd decided to break up with him. I spoke gently, not to scold her, but to reason with her. Breaking up and getting the police involved aren't the same thing. She finally opened her mouth. But the way she mumbled, her lips pouting slightly, it made her seem like a sulking child. Her meaning was clear enough. She still had feelings for him, or maybe she just felt guilty. Like it was her fault for letting things get this far, like she couldn't be the one to get him in trouble. Maybe something like that. I couldn't be sure of her real reasons. But one thing was clear. Right now, Hayashi had no intention of going to the police. In that case, there was only one thing I could say. Got it. Then we won't go to the police. Really? Her eyes looked up at me, full of uncertainty. Yeah, I don't mind. Okay. Like I said before, at the end of the day, all I can do is listen and give advice. Even if I think something's best, it's only natural that you might not agree. So when that happens, just say so. Like now. Yeah. If I can make one request, though, don't take my words so seriously. If you disagree, just say it clearly right away. It's more efficient that way. I could tell Hayashi was irritated. I already know that's how you are. But still, you could try being a little more tactful. Come to think of it, she was always like this in high school too. For all her sharp edges, she tried not to hurt people when she spoke. But this was different, how else should I say it? So I decided to push back a little. That's exactly what I mean. I said it yesterday too. If you want to make your life better, you have to face your situation head on. You're in a tough spot right now. Is this really the time to be worrying about other people's feelings? Hey. I also said this. If you can't solve something on your own, lean on someone else. If you always tiptoe around others and miss your chance to ask for help, isn't that kind of life just sad? It's not that simple. It should be. Think about it in reverse. Let's say I was in trouble and you were the only one I could turn to. You listened to me, what would you want from me? That never happened, so I don't know. Fair. Say. Yeah. I cleared my throat. Then how about Kasahara? If you saw your best friend Kasahara struggling and you listened to her talk about it, what would you want for her? Of course, I'd want her to fix the problem as soon as possible. Exactly. That's how I feel about you right now. Sure, the feelings behind Hayashi wanting to help her best friend Kasahara and me wanting to help Hayashi came from totally different places. But the action is the same. We both just want to help someone with a problem they can't solve alone. And right now, that was enough. I want to help you get through this. That's why I'm talking with you, giving you advice. And yeah, sometimes I might say things that hurt. I might be blunt, but don't take it all at face value. Just think of it as one perspective. Okay. And in the end, you're the one who decides what to do. Me. That's right. I look straight at her. If you don't make the choice yourself, none of this means anything. Got it. So for now, we'll drop the police idea. If I say I want to help you, but then push you into something you don't want, that defeats the purpose. You should have just said that from the start. Yeah, sorry. I sighed, then continued. Also, stay here for a while. Hi. Her reaction was immediate, clearly not what she wanted to hear. She physically backed away from me. So that's what this is really about. What is what? You're disgusting. Hey, what the hell do you think I'm planning? Once again, I was completely dumbfounded. You live with your boyfriend, right? You can't go back to that place. And right now, because of him, you've lost contact with your friends. It's the same with your family. Given the situation, we didn't know how her ex might find out where she was. So relying on old connections probably wasn't a safe option. In that sense, I was relatively secure. I was never that close to her, and we had very few mutual friends. Even about her DV boyfriend, or I guess, ex-boyfriend now, I knew nothing. Well, if I'm being honest, a tiny part of me wanted to sneak a look at him out of morbid curiosity. But that's beside the point. Your boyfriend's probably out there right now, desperately searching for you. Ugh. I saw Hayashi flinch. So she wears her emotions more openly than I expected. Back in high school, She only ever had that blank or annoyed look, so it surprised me. That's why I think you should stay inside for a while. That's all this is about. Okay. If he found her, I could easily imagine the hell she'd be subjected to again. After saying everything I could think of, I finally let out a breath. Since moving to Tokyo, I'd grown distant from my family and hardly talked to anyone for long periods. I was honestly tired from all the conversation. Was there anything else? I thought for a moment, and then remembered. There's one last thing. No matter how much you hate it, you have to go along with it. What is it? Hayashi's face suddenly tensed. If she already figured it out, this would go faster. I wasn't heartless, I was ready to be a little flexible. For just a moment, a flicker of fear crossed Hayashi's face. For someone who was always so headstrong in high school, it was rare to see her look like that. Then she glared at me, trying to act tough. Well, fine. I don't love how you phrased it, but you are helping me so. She rattled it off a bit quickly. And I realized something. She's completely misunderstanding again, isn't she? You mean, I'm supposed to let you do whatever you want with my body, right? Don't say something so stupid. What's so stupid about that? God, my head hurts. Is that what happens when you spend too long with a guy who abuses you? Your thinking gets twisted too? If so, that's really sad. I stared at her. Even though she brought it up, she was glaring at me with a look full of distrust. Her eyes clearly showed how much she hated the idea of giving her body over to me. Even though, before bed, she'd practically thrown herself at me. So a one-night thing is okay, but not something more regular. Or maybe she just hates being treated like an object. Knowing her personality, it's probably the latter. I sighed. Just how many times had I sighed since bringing her into my place? If you hate it, then don't say stuff like, do whatever you want. That's not what this is about. Then what is it? The look in her eyes told me she didn't believe a word I said. This is gonna be a long road. We're going to the hospital. The hospital. I can't just let it go, right? I pointed to her wrist as I spoke. Ah, right. Exactly. That's all it is. I see. Just moments ago, she'd been glaring at me so intensely. But now, for some reason, Hayashi looked a little disappointed. Whatever this so-called queen is thinking, I seriously can't begin to understand it. Chapter 3, The Queen Skilled in Cooking. My first conversation with Hayashi Megumi was awful, even remembering it is painful. It was back in our first year of high school. She probably doesn't remember, but we actually sat next to each other for a while. And during that time, there was one instance where I spoke to her. From the beginning of high school, Hayashi had a lot of friends. Her strong-willed tone was her only real flaw, but she was beautiful and had the charisma to be called the queen, so much so that she even had her own little entourage. Her popularity back then was unbelievable. I never understood what exactly made her so beloved, but I did occasionally witness scenes where she double-booked confession meetups and had to ask someone else to turn the other guy down for her. Even the queen seemed to feel guilty about that, lowering her head with her hands pressed together in apology to the stand-in. Anyway, that's the kind of ultra-popular girl she was in high school. So during breaks, her seat was always surrounded by her groupies. Back then, if I left my seat even for a moment, someone would take it, so I couldn't even go to the bathroom in peace. Our first conversation took place in the classroom. It was right after break ended, and the people swarming her had finally gone back to their own seats. I think it was history class. The nostalgic Sakai-sensei had just entered the room to start the lesson. That's when Hayashi's eraser slipped off her desk. She had let out a yawn, and the eraser dropped as if in sync with it. I saw the whole thing happen, but she didn't seem to notice. I debated whether I should pick it up or not. Then I thought, this girl would definitely complain later if I didn't pick it up, and purely out of selfish calculation, I decided to go ahead and do it. As I leaned over to grab the eraser, I felt a sharp, piercing glare from Hayashi beside me. It was the first time I'd ever felt nervous just picking something up. You dropped this. I picked it up and placed it back on her desk. Hayashi gave me a response, but it wasn't thanks. It wasn't an apology for making me go out of my way either. It wasn't even words. A click of the tongue. That was her response to the guy who bent down and picked up her eraser. What kind of person does that? That's how she chose to respond to a simple act of kindness. Needless to say, that one moment sealed my opinion of Hayashi. And no, it wasn't a good one. From that point on, I kept my distance from her. Every time the school year changed, every time we got new class assignments, I would think, please let me be in a different class from Hayashi this year. But that wish never came true. All 3 years of high school, we ended up in the same class. Which is why, when I woke up and saw Hayashi sleeping next to me for the first time since yesterday, I couldn't help but think. I never would have imagined sharing a room with her overnight, even if her circumstances were tragic. Gotta buy a futon today. Careful not to wake her, I quietly got out of bed. It was the second night in a row I'd slept on the floor. My bed wasn't anything special, but I never imagined I'd end up appreciating it this much. Not until just 2 days ago. Yesterday, after waking up around noon, the whole day had been spent deciding Hayashi's next steps, accompanying her to the hospital, then shopping for clothes so she could stay here for a while. There hadn't been any time left to buy a futon. Today was Monday. I had university lectures during the day, so I'd have to get the futon on my way home. Anyway, I put that out of my mind and started my morning routine. Life as a college student living alone often devolves into chaos, but I always try to wake up early, unless I have a late-night shift the night before. Waking up early gives me more hours in the morning, which makes me feel like I'm getting a head start on the day. Normally, I'd use that extra time to clean my room thoroughly, but since someone else was sleeping in my bed right now, it was probably best not to wake her with the vacuum. Even if she was someone who used to hate me in high school, I wasn't heartless enough to interrupt her sleep. If anything, after seeing what she went through, I actually felt kind of sorry for her. I wanted to let her sleep as much as she wanted, at least while she was here. But that also meant I couldn't do my usual cleaning. What was I supposed to do? As I pondered that for a while, it hit me, despite waking up so early, the only thing I had planned for my morning was cleaning. Is my life actually kind of pathetic? Shaking off the thought, I unlocked my phone and checked the time. The first trains were already running. Guess I'll cook breakfast before I go. Fortunately, I had class starting from first period. I could head to the library early and get some prep done before lectures. Yeah, that works. Having made up my mind, I started cooking in the small kitchen of the apartment. Breakfast was the leftover rice from yesterday, some miso soup, sausages, and salad. I also set aside a portion for Hayashi on the small single-person table. After quickly getting ready for school, I checked on Hayashi one last time before leaving. She was still sound asleep, completely under the blanket. Hearing her quiet breathing made me think that maybe she was starting to feel at home here, even if just a little. That brought me some relief. At the hospital yesterday, she'd been diagnosed with bruises all over her body, and her wrist, which I had noticed was in bad shape, turned out to have a minor avulsion fracture. Despite that, Hayashi had listened to the doctor's explanation calmly. Normally, you'd expect someone to freak out or at least show some anger at what her boyfriend did to her. But she didn't. I stood beside her, listening in disbelief. Later, when the doctor started prying about what had happened, Hayashi tried to dodge the questions and leave quickly, but I convinced her to at least take the medical certificate. I had her do that in case she ever changed her mind in the future. It could be important. Still, her attitude at the hospital, refusing to report her boyfriend to the police. It was obvious she still couldn't cut ties with that abusive jerk. The Hayashi I knew in high school would never be the one getting hit, be the one making her boyfriend cry or walking all over him. No, actually, she's not really the cruel, domineering type. She just has an unshakable sense of justice, one that she always follows for better or worse. Still, is this really okay? Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's a bother having Hayashi in my room. Of course, I moved here to live alone, and yes, I'd prefer not having anyone else in my space. I really would. But putting that aside, is it really okay for her not to report her abusive boyfriend? No, I shouldn't dwell on this. Right now, Hayashi doesn't want to press charges. That's her decision, and I just promised yesterday that I'd respect it. If she changes her mind one day, then I'll be there to support her. After class ended, I stopped by the home improvement store on my way home and bought a futon, just as planned. I returned home carrying the big futon bag. From the front of the apartment building, you can see the small ventilation windows of each room. If the light's on, it usually means someone's inside. When I looked up at my window, the light was on, despite me not being home. I'm back. I never thought I'd say that when coming home to a place meant for living alone. And yet, it didn't feel bad. Maybe because I'd grown kind of lonely after living solo for a few months. Or maybe it was the warm, savory scent in the air. The sound of sizzling meat in a frying pan reached my ears the moment I opened the door. Welcome back. Hayashi was cooking, her hair tied up with one of the scrunchies we bought yesterday. Just that small change gave her a different vibe compared to yesterday. More homely or something like that. Even though she greeted me, she didn't look in my direction. That cold attitude brought back memories of her high school self. She probably just greeted me that way because she was checking the heat on the stove. Maybe the reason I didn't realize something that simple right away was because I hadn't interacted with people much these past few months of living alone. You like Hamburg steak? Still not looking my way, Hayashi asked. You didn't have to wait and cook for me. I could have made something after I got back, you know. I'm the one being sheltered by you. Doing at least this much is only natural. Well, from my perspective, you're a guest. It's only natural I be the one to take care of you. It's fine, this much is nothing. You're pretty used to this, huh? Thanks to life experience. Hayashi flipped the Hamburg steak in the frying pan. So, do you like Hamburg steak or not? I don't hate it. That's such a half-hearted answer. Hayashi gave a wry smile and went on. You could have woken me up when you left. Was there a reason too? It's only natural to see the homeowner off. I'm nothing that special. I'm just renting this place with my parents' money. But yesterday, you paid for everything, from the doctor's fee to daily necessities. I'm your ally, that's only natural. It was the same thing I'd told her yesterday. I made the decision to support Hayashi, and I was just following through on that. If she started feeling guilty about it, that would defeat the whole point. You should act more like your high school self, more shameless. The way you are now makes things way harder. Totally get that. What do you mean you get it? I don't know. She's really just throwing out random replies while focusing on cooking. Still, since she was the one making dinner, I figured I shouldn't interrupt and chose to keep quiet. For a while, neither of us said a word. The only sound in the room was the sizzling of Hamburg steak cooking in the pan. Hey, Yamamoto. What? There's something I want to talk to you about. Okay. Dinner's almost ready, so let me talk after we eat. That was all Hayashi said before turning back to her cooking. I watched her from the living room as she stood in front of the ridiculously cramped kitchen typical of a one-bedroom apartment, clearly not designed with actual cooking in mind. I didn't say anything to her, but knowing what she was like in high school, I couldn't help but wonder if she could really cook. Back in our second year, our class had a cafe booth for the school festival. Even though it was just a high school event, a bunch of excited classmates decided we'd offer 10 different menu items. In the chaos of the festival, I'd seen Hayashi awkwardly chopping ingredients for the curry. We weren't on good terms, but even so, I remember feeling uneasy watching her. Come to think of it, she ended up cutting her finger with a kitchen knife just like I feared, and it caused quite a commotion. In the end, the festival wrapped up, and our class took it as a lesson in the importance of proper preparation. Not that most people remembered that by the time the event was over. Anyway, because I'd seen Hayashi's cooking back then, I couldn't help but worry about her now. But looking at it more closely, the patties on the pan were nearly done. At this point, all she had to do was keep an eye on the heat and wait. The hardest part of cooking Hamburg steak was already behind her. Her movements were clearly more practiced than they had been back in high school. She did mention her abusive boyfriend wanted her to become a full-time housewife. Maybe he forced her to cook. If that's the case, then she became good at cooking because of that awful situation. The irony of it made me feel another pang of pity for her. As I watched Hayashi cooking with skill she never had back then, a question suddenly popped into my mind. Wait a sec, did I ever buy ground meat? My diet as a college student living alone is probably even more pathetic than most. I've never cared much about food. As long as it filled my stomach when I was hungry, that was enough for me. So most of my meals were half-hearted, quick stuff like yakisoba or fried rice. If I ever felt like trying something more elaborate, it was usually just stew or curry. Even today's breakfast felt like extra effort just because I had Hayashi here as a guest. So what I'm trying to say is, no matter how hard I think about it, I'm pretty sure I never bought any ground beef to make Hamburg steak. Which means, The person who bought the ingredients currently sizzling in that frying pan must have been. There was no need to think too hard about it. The answer was too obvious. Dinner's ready. Hayashi placed 2 plates of Hamburg steak on the table. Then she brought over the rice she had cooked and some miso soup. It was the first proper dinner I'd had since moving out of my parents' house. Phew. Hayashi let out a small sigh as she pulled off her hair tie. Her sleek black hair swayed loosely around her shoulders. Let's eat. Yeah. I brought a bite of her cooking to my mouth. It was delicious. And yet, for some reason, I didn't feel like saying it out loud. Probably because there was something I wanted to ask Hayashi. The words stuck in my throat, and I couldn't bring myself to compliment her cooking honestly. How is it? Hi. Her gaze felt a little cold. It's good. I see. Her response was curt, but she looked just a little pleased. Then she quietly began eating her own portion. We didn't talk at all. Back in high school, we didn't get along. And even now, being alone in the same room with her was awkward. But that wasn't the only reason for the silence. No, I had another reason I couldn't speak up. How should I even ask about the ground meat? And what exactly was that, something Hayashi wanted to talk about? No matter how much I thought, the questions came and went. I had no idea where to start. Thanks for the food. Emma. We finished eating almost at the same time. Without saying a word, Hayashi got up and grabbed both our plates. I'll do the dishes. I offered, but it's fine. She shut me down, flat. I halfway stood up but then sat back down. Now I had nothing to do. Did you go out today? Maybe it was the boredom. I let the words slip out without thinking, as if relaxing had loosened my tongue. At the sink, Hayashi's face looked a little tense. Her hands fumbled a bit with the dishes too. And then it hit me. The way I asked that question, it sounded like I was scolding her for going outside, just like her ex. That's not what I meant. That's not it at all. I just imagined the worst, that her ex-boyfriend was still looking for her, still obsessed, and I got scared. That's why I ended up sounding like I was blaming her. That was the same thing I explained to her in detail yesterday. It's because I worry about her that I even tried to convince her to go to the police in the first place. She should know that. Hayashi should understand that by now. Is that a problem? But her response, it wasn't an apology, it wasn't self-reflection either. It was a complete display of defiance. I hesitated to respond, just keeping my face from showing it was all I could manage. The sound of the water running in the sink felt unusually loud. Slowly, I began to sort through everything that had happened so far. Right now, I was merely someone who had temporarily taken in Hayashi. And Hayashi, as things stood, had no obligation to listen to the advice of someone who was just a collaborator. Back in high school, we hadn't been on good terms. The Hayashi who had been cooking just moments ago seemed like a completely different person compared to the one I had known back then. But, just now, when she'd gotten all fired up over something she didn't agree with, that reaction was exactly like the reckless, unreasoning queen I'd seen again and again in high school. Well, it's not like it's a bad thing. Whether or not you take my advice is up to you. That too was something I had carefully explained to her just yesterday. But I'm convinced what you did was reckless. I don't just think so, I'm convinced. I only know what you've told me about your ex. Even if what she said was fair, that didn't mean I shouldn't express my own opinion. Precisely because of that, I believe I can give a more objective take on your ex. From where I'm standing, he seems dangerous. Reuniting with him and putting yourself at risk like that, it was way too careless. What do you even know? Hayashi said bitterly, nothing at all. Obviously, I'm not saying your opinion is wrong. What I said just now was just my objective view. But you don't know whether that view is actually right. Exactly. Which is why I'm not saying your thinking is wrong either. Then, Hayashi fell silent. After a moment, she stopped washing the dishes and turned her face toward me, but she didn't speak right away. She seemed to be wrestling with something inside. She lowered her head as if dejected, and then, as if trying to calm herself down, resumed washing the dishes. The sound of dishes being cleaned was the only thing that filled the room. When she finished, Hayashi turned off the tap, dried her hands, and returned to the living room. She sat formally on her knees in front of me. Sorry, I was being stubborn. Surprisingly, Hayashi offered a sincere apology. Back in high school, This would have immediately turned into a shouting match with twice the complaints thrown back at me. The fact that it didn't now made me think she really had changed. For now, you don't have to sit like that. She lowered her head, but didn't move from her formal posture. I'm the one who should apologize. If you needed dinner ingredients, I should have gone out myself. After you woke up this morning, I should have talked to you first before heading out. Since I've been crashing in your apartment, there's no reason for you to be apologizing to me at all. Her response was unexpected. I mean, technically, I was the one sheltering her. Another guy might use that to guilt her, or worse, exploit her for his own desires. Of course, there was no way that would ever happen with me. I hadn't taken her in expecting anything in return. That aside, I felt like I finally got a small glimpse of what she'd been wanting to talk to me about. Was your consultation about something like, who should be doing the grocery runs? No, not at all. So it's not that, huh? I see. I just assumed you went out to restock ingredients and wanted me to take over from now on to minimize the risk. That's not it at all. Not at all, huz. To be honest, the grocery shopping today was just something I did on the side. The real reason I went out, the not on the side reason, is what I wanted to talk to you about. I see, then you didn't need to go shopping at all. What about the money? I used what was left of the money he gave me. I only picked up groceries because I thought it might help cover up the fact I'd gone out. Cover up what? That I left the apartment. Hayashi gave a small, bitter laugh. Well, guess it didn't work, since you caught me anyway. Her strained smile made me feel a bit of her despair, but I still couldn't quite piece everything together. You're probably confused, huh? Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. He was the kind of person who always found something to complain about. Seriously, always. When he was in a bad mood, he'd nitpick over everything. If I threw out trash he left on the floor, he'd yell at me for not asking. If I did ask, he'd yell at me for asking something so obvious. He was like that. It reminded me of a worn-down employee trying to survive a toxic workplace and a worthless boss. But there was one time when he'd be quiet. Only one, when he was eating. His mouth was full, so he couldn't complain. Mealtime was the only peace I had in that house. Maybe that's why I started associating food with safety. If I could get him to eat, maybe he'd forget what he was going to yell about. So I thought, I'll stop by the supermarket and make something. I see. Her story was worse than I imagined, and I couldn't find the words to respond. And at that point, I knew whatever Hayashi wanted to talk about next wasn't going to be anything good. I hung my head. But when I noticed she was still sitting formally, I shook off my thoughts. In any case, I'll take care of the shopping from now on, so don't worry. Actually, I'll handle all the housework. This is my place, and you're my guest. No, I want to move around a bit too. I'll handle the housework. I see. Considering everything she'd been through, doing housework might help ease her stress or even start to heal some of her trauma. With that in mind, I accepted her offer. No, but then I quickly reconsidered. Hayashi, I really do appreciate it. You offering to handle things around the apartment helps me a lot. I mean, with university and part-time work, I'm barely home. Stuff like laundry piles up. So yeah, seriously, thank you. But there's one thing I won't give up. One task that's absolutely mine. What? Cleaning. Do you have something you don't want touched? No. Then is it something that takes a special technique? Not that either. Then why? Because cleaning is my hobby. It's my passion. Ah, I see. You're just an idiot then. Exactly, you get it. Man, it's nice when someone catches on fast. Hayashi let out a sigh of disbelief. While Hayashi was still sulking, I, on the other hand, felt satisfied that I'd managed to defend my hobby, and then remembered what she had said earlier. We got off track. I muttered and continued. So, what was that thing you wanted to talk to me about? I forgot. Don't forget. Ahem. Even though she'd brought it up herself, Hayashi now looked gloomy. A small part of me didn't want to hear it anymore, but I had said I'd listen, so brushing it off wasn't an option. She hesitated for a moment. Then, as if making up her mind, she stood up, walked to the corner of the room, and handed me a free magazine she had hidden there at some point. It was a job listings booklet. I couldn't help but question her judgment for a second. I want to start a part-time job. I probably made a face that clearly showed how conflicted I was. Even an outsider could have guessed I didn't know how to respond. Just like I'd told myself earlier, my role was to give advice, and it was up to Hayashi to decide whether to take it. Still, that didn't mean I could respond half-heartedly. I had to view her situation objectively, maybe even more so than she could, and consider what she should do, what I would do in her shoes. Only then could I offer a real answer. That was what sincerity meant to me. That said, if I'm being honest, I already knew what my answer was: Hayashi's current situation. And the more we talked, the more I came to realize just how unhinged her ex must be. The only conclusion I could reach was this: I think getting a part-time job is a good thing. Yeah, but not right now. Hayashi's abusive ex was supposedly searching for her with bloodshot eyes. I thought that might be an exaggeration at first, but now, I was starting to believe it. That's why I thought Hayashi should lie low until things cooled off. She should avoid going outside and prevent any chance of running into him. Well, I figured you'd say that. She responded with a bitter look, as if she'd already anticipated it. Do you need to get a job that badly? You're not in debt or anything, are you? Oh, of course not. Then why? If I can't earn any money, I'm just a burden to you. That caught me completely off guard. I hadn't expected her to bring me into this. I couldn't believe she'd been thinking that way. I hadn't even considered the possibility. You're still a college student. It's not like you're rolling in cash or anything. Sure, I'm only here for a few months until things settle down, but even a few months could eat up all your savings. Don't worry about the money. I mean, I can't say that, honestly. In the end, I'll probably ask you to pay me back. Of course I'll pay you back. That's a given, obviously. Surprisingly, she seemed very clear-headed when it came to money. I just want to start working so I can lighten your load. So I won't be a burden. Lighten the load. So she won't be a burden. I could clearly see how she felt now. She didn't want to trouble me, and I also understood how reckless she could be when she thought that way. If something happens to you, it'll be too late. Even so, my answer didn't change. I wasn't the kind of guy who'd turn a blind eye to someone putting themselves in danger just for money. But then, Hayashi said something I wasn't expecting. It can't be helped. She murmured with resignation. It can't be helped. Yeah, it just can't be helped. She looked me straight in the eye. There's nothing else I can do right now. If he finds me because of that, then so be it. What the hell did she mean by that? What she was saying, essentially, was she had to work part-time for my sake. She knew going outside was risky. She knew it could lead to the worst-case scenario. And yet, she'd already decided she could accept that outcome. Honestly, I couldn't understand it. Given her situation, the solution was beyond obvious. Stay in the apartment until things settled down. That's it. Simple. And Hayashi had to know that too. She had to. Yet even knowing that, she still wanted to go out and work. And if she got caught, then so be it. That way of thinking was just unthinkable to me. It can't be helped was something you said about unavoidable misfortunes. This wasn't that. This was just surrender. It was self-harm born of desperation. That's when it finally hit me. Hayashi had likely been a victim of domestic violence. Not just physical abuse, but emotional and psychological torment, too. Her dignity had been seriously damaged. There was no other way the once-proud Hayashi could be saying such weak, pitiful things. There was no other way the former queen bee could show such a pathetic face to a commoner like me. A helpless kind of anger began to stir in my chest. It had only been 4 months since we graduated high school, only 3 months since we started university. She'd met her ex even more recently than that. They'd started living together even more recently than that. All of that just within a span of months, and in that short time. What the hell had her ex done to her? I never liked her back in high school. If I picked up her eraser, she'd click her tongue. Because of her clique, I couldn't even relax during breaks. It was honestly miserable. But still, even with all that, I think I might have respected her on some level, respected the way she thought differently from me. Maybe that's why I couldn't help feeling so furious now, at what she'd been put through, at the bastard who trampled on her. What I can do is still just offer advice. No matter how good the advice, the final decision has to be hers. But so that she can make that decision, so that she can choose what's right for her, so she won't have regrets. Doing everything I can, that's what sincerity means to me. In that case, while Hayashi sat with her head down, I opened my phone. Hayashi. What? Take a look at this. I pulled up my banking app, entered the password, and held the screen out to her. Her face changed. She looked genuinely surprised, like she hadn't expected me to show her something like this out of the blue. There's 1.5 million yen in my account. I've been working part-time since high school, saving every bit I could. I don't really spend on anything, so it just added up. Hayashi was still too stunned to speak. Ignoring her silence, I opened my budgeting app next and showed it to her. This month's expenses were made up of utilities, internet, water, gas, and mostly food. The rent was covered by my parents back home. My income came from scholarships and part-time work. Maybe it's a stretch to count scholarships as income, but I've still been able to save money each month. Out of all these items, the only thing that significantly increases because you're here is food. There may be some initial costs, but even then, I could easily keep sheltering you for years if needed. If you plan to pay me back in the future, then housing one person is no trouble at all. But that's your money, you earned it. It's supposed to be for you. Exactly, it's my money, which is why I'm saying I'll use it for you. You don't have to do that. Hayashi, don't change the subject. She bit her lip and glared at me. You were going to get a job because you were worried about my finances. I just proved that worry is unnecessary. So your concern is gone, and your reason for getting a part-time job no longer exists. What more is there for us to talk about? There is more. Of course there is. Because there's no reason for you to spend your money on me. That's not something you need to worry about. Yes, it is. No, it's not. Yes, it is. No, it's not. Then you're saying you do have a reason to spend your money on me. I am. Liar. I'm not lying. You are lying. Her shrill voice echoed through the room. It's a lie because I have nothing right now. There's no merit in keeping me around. If anything, you're just getting dragged into a mess. There's no reason for you to shelter me, that's right. I have nothing now. Yeah, I'd already figured that out. The whole idea of Hayashi wanting to get a part-time job for my sake, going so far as to break our agreement and sneak out, that was something I'd questioned from the start. Sure, she probably felt some sense of gratitude for me taking her in. But was that the real reason? I doubted it. Why? Because of our relationship in high school, I was pretty sure I was right. After living with an abusive boyfriend for just a few months, Hayashi had become emotionally and physically exhausted. Because of his cruelty, the proud queen from high school had her sense of self utterly destroyed. So now she wanted to reclaim her dignity. That's why she was willing to take risks and work a job. It was a desperate, unstable mindset, one that left her blind to the dangers of running into her ex. There is a benefit to me sheltering you. I said it again, this time directly to her. You're lying. I told you I'm not. Then tell me what it is. Well, you're going to handle the housework, right? Hayashi went quiet. I mean, I don't particularly hate doing it. But like I said, with university and part-time work, I'm out of the house a lot. And when that happens, housework piles up. It gets to me. More than a few times, I've thought about how bad that is for my mental health. So if you're willing to take care of that for me, even for a few months, that's a huge help. Just that. Just that. Don't be ridiculous. I raised my voice slightly. You know how I am. If there's even a bit of dust on the TV, I clean the entire room. If I see even a hint of buildup in the washing machine, I scrub the drums spotless. And yet, I still have classes and work. There's never enough time. So if you're willing to handle even some of the housework, lending you money is no big deal. Is sheltering Hayashi the right thing to do? Honestly, I still didn't have a clear answer. But even after just a day or so, part of me already felt like taking her in had been the right call. The hamburger steak was really good. The one she made earlier. I still remembered how clumsy she was during the school festival back in high school. But now, she'd overcome something she once struggled with and cooked for me. A dish like that, simple maybe, but definitely something I never would have made myself, was her way of trying to show something. She'd gone out of her way for me. So now I've made it clear why I'll lend you money and why I'm okay with you staying here. What is that even supposed to mean? I could tell she gave a small laugh. Are you really okay with this? Yeah, for a while. But I might still cause trouble. Are you an idiot? That's just what living together is. Causing trouble for each other, dealing with it, that's what cohabitation is. You figure it out together. If you can't do that, it's not a real life. Figure it out together, huh? Hayashi murmured, thoughtful. I guess we never had that. She probably meant her and her ex. Yeah, I figured. From what I'd heard, her ex never had any intention of accepting her. If anything, he wanted to control and suppress her completely. Just as she said, it didn't sound like a healthy relationship at all. Hey, Yamamoto. Yeah. Thanks. I don't need thanks. She apologized to me anyway. But in the end, what decision had she come to? Was she still planning to get a job, or was she going to prioritize safety and stay put? I wanted to know the answer more than her apology. I wanted to hear her final decision. If I sounded a little cold, it was probably just because of how I am. I'll hold off on the part-time job. Good. Do that. She probably didn't notice, but I breathed a silent sigh of relief. With this, the risk of her ex finding her was significantly reduced. At this point, it was safe to say that her whereabouts were more or less secure. For now, just relax here for a while and recharge. Yeah, I will. Sometimes rest is necessary. This is a good opportunity, isn't it? Hey, Yamamoto. You said it earlier, right? That the only thing that really increases while I'm staying here is food costs. Yeah, I said that. Why? So, what do you usually do for lunch? What do I do? I eat at the cafeteria. I see. Hayashi let out a small sigh, like she'd made up her mind about something. Hey, Yamamoto, I have a suggestion. What is it? I'll make you lunch. Bento, I mean. Hi. Hayashi didn't respond. She just looked down awkwardly, twirling her hair with her fingers. Why? To help keep food costs down. I have to eat lunch at home anyway, but buying ingredients just for myself feels wasteful. So I'll make lunch for both of us. I see, that did sound budget-friendly. I had savings, sure, but that didn't mean I wanted to throw money around. Her proposal was honestly a welcome one. All right, would you really do that? Yeah. And could you tell me what you like to eat? Hayashi asked, her gaze lowered, cheeks tinged with red. It was so unlike the usual Hayashi that I was momentarily caught off guard. Chapter 4, The Devoted Queen. It was the third day since I started sheltering Hayashi Megumi. As usual, I woke up at the same time. Until yesterday, I'd been forced to sleep on the floor since I'd given up the bed for Hayashi, but today I could finally sleep with the futon I bought yesterday. Thanks to that, the pain I'd been waking up with for the past 2 days was gone. It was a refreshing morning. Free from aches, I felt better than usual, like the kind of mood you get walking on a sunny afternoon. However, outside the window was a torrential downpour. Hearing the sound of rain dampened my mood a bit, but I decided to go ahead and clean as usual. Yesterday, I'd gone out early in the morning, and when I came back, I spent a lot of time talking with Hayashi, so I hadn't been able to clean. Maybe that's why the room felt a little grimier than usual. That said, even though I'd decided to clean, I couldn't really make a lot of noise while Hayashi was still sleeping. It was 4:30 in the morning. I was just up early. It was still perfectly normal for her to be asleep. Waking her with noise would have been inconsiderate. What could I clean without making too much noise? Right, the bathroom. Running the shower would make some sound, but in a sealed bathroom, the noise wouldn't carry much into the room. First, I folded the futon and quietly moved the folding table I'd pushed to the side back to the center of the room. Then I headed to the bathroom. I immediately began cleaning, starting with the window glass, removing the water stains I hadn't touched since cleaning last week. After about an hour of that, Hayashi showed up in the changing room, looking sleepy. Just like yesterday, she rubbed her eyes with both hands. Morning. Letting out a completely unguarded yawn, Hayashi spoke. Looked like she came to wash her face. Morning. I thought this yesterday too, but you sure wake up early. Her voice was still a little groggy. Half asleep, her normally well-balanced face looked a bit off. Still, even looking like that, she was more put together than most people just after waking up. This girl's really got good looks, I thought vaguely. While I continued cleaning the bathroom, I heard the sound of running water from the sink. The sound of washing her face, brushing her teeth, gargling. Do you always wake up this early? Now more alert, Hayashi's voice had a clearer tone. Yeah, pretty much. Same as yesterday, huh? You're really an early bird. You just said that a minute ago. Did I? Figures. She probably doesn't remember, still half asleep. Feels like you get more out of the day when you wake up early, right? I get it, but most college students only get up just in time not to be late for class. Speaking of which, you were always early to school back in high school too, weren't you? Yeah, that's true. She was right. Our high school had a fairly strong soccer team, and since they were top tier, morning practices were intense. I used to get to class even before their practice started. Well, it's not something to brag about. I never really talked about it unless someone else brought it up. You're such a weirdo, you know that. You call me that just for being an early riser. Getting up early on purpose is normal. But your kind of early rising is more like one of your little quirks. So she's saying I'm a weirdo. I mean, I'll admit I'm a bit unusual, but still, isn't that a bit much? You get up early too, don't you? Well, yeah. Ever since I started living with someone, I've started waking up even earlier. Ugh. The moment she mentioned living together, Hayashi's expression darkened. I frowned in response. Just from that tone and expression, I could almost see glimpses of the awful past she'd been through. Sorry, I didn't mean to sound like I was trying to one-up you with misery. It's fine. It was just a bit of awkward timing. She didn't need to apologize. But seriously, I have no idea where her emotional landmines are. From now on, I'll have to be more careful with what I say. I'll start making breakfast soon, and a bento too. Ah, thanks. What time are you heading out? Let's see, around 6, I guess. Really? Yeah. I see. So yesterday, you must have left really early, huh? I guess so. Did you have something to do? If I told her I left early so I wouldn't wake her up, she'd probably overthink it again. Even if she didn't, her emotional state has been fragile ever since we reunited. Better to keep it simple. Avoiding Hayashi's curious gaze, I looked away. Just wanted to get some prep done for today's lecture. Wow, responsible. Yeah. I've always been a model student, right? Since high school. When it comes to academics, yeah. She laughed. That sounded like she was saying I was a mess in everything else. You really are a weirdo. Satisfied with her conclusion, Hayashi left the changing room, seemed like she headed to the kitchen. Using what was in the fridge, she started cooking something simple. You just stay over there and wait. I'll do that. As I walked to the living room, I found myself idly thinking how glad I was to have moved into this place. It was over 40 years old, a 20-minute walk from the station, and the closest convenience store was 10 minutes away. So yeah, not exactly convenient, but it had a separate bath and toilet, and even for a studio, it had all the basic essentials. If we were stuck in a smaller place than this, the frustration might have built up, especially for Hayashi. I turned on the TV and tried killing time by watching the news. But honestly, I wasn't a fan of the morning news shows. They tried too hard to be cheery, even though they were supposed to be news programs. I preferred the type where the announcers calmly read off the day's topics from the newsroom. I had no interest in learning about some local sweet shop or watching some celebrity react to eating there. I heard the stove being turned off from the kitchen, and I stood up. What? Noticing me, Hayashi looked suspicious. I'll carry the food. Wait, why? What do you mean, why? It's my place, and you're the guest. I was just continuing what I'd started yesterday. No, it's fine. I can at least handle this myself. But Hayashi just frowned even more. Don't push yourself. I'm not pushing myself, obviously. You can't know that for sure. Whatever. Just sit down and be quiet. Got it. Why is she getting so grumpy over something like this? We were getting along just fine a minute ago, and now I have no idea what her triggers are. Grumbling internally, I sat down. Hayashi scooped rice from the rice cooker, placed it on a tray, and brought over the food. Turn off the TV when you're eating. She sat formally across the small table from me and said that. I turned off the TV. Itadakimasu. Itadakimasu. We pressed our hands together and started eating. You know. What? You've got this mom vibe going on. Yeah, I have no idea what you're talking about. She's meddlesome, cares about table manners, and insists others follow what she thinks is right. She said she didn't get it, but to me, she already felt like an annoying mom. Well, annoying or not, it's not like I'd ever raise a hand to a woman like some random jerk I've never met. If you don't eat up and get to school soon, you'll be late. Okay, Mom. Hey, you've got rice grains left in your bowl. You need to finish all of it. Again, Mom. With our pointless exchange going nowhere, breakfast time slowly passed. After we finished eating, Hayashi started doing the dishes while I got ready for university. I packed my textbooks in my bag, washed my face, brushed my teeth. Then I returned to the room. Hey. Hayashi replied without looking up, still doing the dishes. Mind going to the changing room for a bit? I want to change. She didn't respond right away. Once she finished the dishes, she turned off the faucet and looked at me, clearly exasperated. Why not just change right here? Something about the way she said it, all annoyed, really got under my skin. I was trying to be considerate, thinking she wouldn't want to see me in nothing but underwear, and she just brushes it off like it's nothing. Well, she did used to live with someone, right? She's probably seen plenty of guys naked. I'll go change in the dressing room then. Looking back, I should have just done that from the start. I grabbed my clothes, passed by Hayashi, and stepped into the changing room. She looked just as exasperated when we passed each other. Seems like she really was annoyed at me trying to be considerate. Or maybe she misunderstood and thought I was embarrassed by something so trivial. Either way, that face of hers really pisses me off. Naturally, there were no eyes on me in the changing room. Still, I changed quickly. Since I'd sweated a fair bit in my sleepwear, I decided to throw it in the washing machine. And the moment I opened the lid, I immediately turned my eyes away. Right, I should have realized this the moment I decided to let her stay here. Right now, there were 2 sets of clothes stuffed into the machine. One set was mine, the homeowner. The other was Hayashi's, women's clothes. I hadn't noticed last night, since she insisted I bathe first, claiming it was only proper for the homeowner to go first, clinging to some old-fashioned value. That's why I'd let my guard down. On top of my clothes in the machine were Hayashi's, a shirt and underwear. My hand gripping the washing machine lid tensed. If Hayashi saw me like this, she'd never let me hear the end of it. Forget what you saw. Forget it all, especially the white and light blue striped underwear you caught out of the corner of your eye. Damn it, that plain pair of underwear wouldn't leave my mind. Even though it was the one we'd bought together the other day. Now that I knew she'd worn it, I couldn't help but feel weird. Lunch is ready. GYAH. Without any tact, Hayashi swung open the changing room door. I yelped without thinking. Hayashi looked at me, puzzled. Thanks. Trying to play it cool, I thanked her. What were you doing? Her eyes seemed to narrow just for a moment. Changing. Then why scream? Because you barged in when I told you I was changing. What else was I supposed to do? Such a prude. Shut it. She suddenly grinned. She looked way too pleased with herself. Oh, I see. You don't want me seeing you naked. She was clearly teasing me. Got a problem with that? Not at all. I'd have no issue showing you my naked body, though. What kind of contest is this? With a smug HMPH, Hayashi looked ridiculously proud of herself. Seriously, what kind of competition is this supposed to be? Is it really that satisfying to one-up me? Of course it is. I'm annoying. She's probably been bottling up her frustration after all the times I've argued her down. Thanks for the lunch, I'm heading to school. I'd been planning to casually bring up the topic of doing laundry together, pretending it was no big deal. But now I didn't feel like it anymore. I gave Hayashi a look to tell her to step out of the changing room, then went to the kitchen and took the bento from her. I packed it with your favorite Kinpira gobo. Oh, thanks. I went to grab my bag from the room, slipped the bento inside, and headed to the front door. As I was putting on my shoes, Hayashi even came to see me off. Be careful. Yeah. Just as I finished tying my shoes, I remembered. Today's my shift, so I'll be back late. Got it. I stood up, sigh. What's with the sigh? Hayashi reacted to the sigh I'd let out without thinking. Huh. No, I was just thinking how much I don't feel like working my shift. Totally get that. You do? Of course. I used to work part-time too, you know. Still, I'm surprised. Surprised about what? Hearing the words "don't feel like it" come out of your mouth. What's so surprising about that? You're always so particular, strong-willed, and serious about everything. I figured you'd never say something like that. Just because I think it's a hassle doesn't mean I'm not going to take it seriously. True enough. Well, it's a part-time job. What you get out of it is a meager wage. Of course, it'll feel like a hassle sometimes. You're totally going to be one of those salarymen obsessed with getting promoted. Maybe I will be. Hayashi gave a quiet laugh. What's so funny? You say the pay's not worth the effort, and yet when it comes to helping me, you're all in. Of course, your cooking's good. I see. With a faint, thoughtful look on her face, Hayashi lowered her gaze. I turned to leave. Well, I'm heading out. Have a good day. The heavy rain from early morning had stopped completely. Still, the humidity clung to my skin uncomfortably thanks to the high temperature. Looks like today's going to be hot too, I thought as I left the apartment. Section. On the way to university, I absent-mindedly watched videos on my phone while deep in thought. Naturally, my thoughts were about the girl currently staying at my place. 3 days since I took her in. If I had to summarize, I'd say things weren't going well. Because, in the end, all I'd really done was talk her down from acting recklessly. All that did was reduce the risk to Hayashi. It didn't actually solve anything. There are 2 main paths I can think of to directly resolve the problem. One is to let time handle it. There are plenty of things in life that sort themselves out if you wait. I've said this to Hayashi before, just wait for things to cool down. That's the first solution. The good thing about this approach, at least to me, is that it doesn't demand much emotional effort. People facing problems tend to weaken the moment they fully acknowledge them. When it's someone else, it's easy to offer pushy advice without hesitation. But when it's their own issue, they freeze up. That's a pretty common experience. For people like that, this kind of approach is probably ideal. And Hayashi's clearly mentally worn down right now. I can tell just by watching that she's subconsciously trying to solve things this way. But of course, this low-stress approach comes with major downsides. If you just sit back and wait, there's always the risk that the situation will actually get worse. Procrastinate on solving a problem, and by the time you realize you can't do anything about it, it's already too late. That, too, is something everyone's probably experienced. And honestly, I'm starting to think Hayashi's situation isn't one that time will heal. In fact, the longer this goes on, the worse it might get. It's easy to imagine. For example, let's say some time passes, and Hayashi ends up running into her ex again. In that case, he'd resent her even more than if they'd met again right away. And if he manages to take her back, he'd almost certainly become even more controlling and violent. There's another problem with waiting. The longer we wait, the harder it might be to get help from the police, even if we file a report. Of the 2 possible solutions, I've thought of for Hayashi's situation. The second is the one I'd already proposed to her, turning it into a case by going to the police. But the longer we delay that option, the harder it'll be for her to act on it. If we report it too late, the police will probably say something like, "The incident happened months ago. Why didn't you come to us sooner?" That kind of response is bound to weaken Hayashi's confidence. Even if she tries to act later, it might feel like the urgency is gone, and that could lead to her being the one who suffers in the end. That's why I urged her to go to the police early on. Because that's the only real way to resolve her situation. I was sure it was the fastest way to bring her some peace of mind. Well, that didn't work out. Sure, part of the blame lies with Hayashi, who never had any intention of reporting him in the first place. But it's not like I'm completely blameless either. When I tried to persuade her to go to the police, I still had this lingering thought that I didn't really care what happened to her. That's probably why I gave in and respected her wishes instead of pressing the issue. But last night, I came to a realization. If I want her to make the right choice, if I want her to come to the right conclusion, then doing everything I can to support that is how I show sincerity. I have a reason to be sincere with her. I owe Hayashi. She's doing most of the housework, aside from cleaning, that is. Also, if I can, I'd really like to eat her hamburger steak one more time. That's why I have to find a way to push her to report her ex. That was the answer I reached after thinking things through all night, facing the reality head-on. But man, this is tricky. The fact is, I already agreed once not to involve the police. It's easy to say, can you reconsider filing a report? But after I already went along with her decision, would she even listen to me now? Wouldn't she think, why are you suddenly changing your mind now? And if that happens, she'll stop thinking rationally and react emotionally, with strong resistance, no doubt. So what can I do now to help her go to the police? I can't bring up the idea of reporting him again, not for a while at least. Which means someone else will have to push her. That's the only viable plan I've got for now. And truth be told, I have someone in mind. Someone who, most likely, Hayashi trusts even more than she trusts me. Section. While I was lost in thought, I arrived at the university and made my way to Building C. First period today was an elective. French. It wasn't just for engineering majors like me, but a lecture open to students from other departments too. Since engineering tends to have more guys and fewer girls, a lot of us end up taking electives like this one. Apparently, it's to meet girls. Of course, I chose it purely to attend the lectures seriously. That said, just for today, I came to class hoping I might get the chance to talk to one particular girl. Her name is Kasahara Akari. She was a classmate from high school, same school as me and Hayashi. In fact, in both our second and third years, we were in the same class. And she was especially close to Hayashi, one of the girls who spent a lot of time with her. As it turns out, Kasahara and I both went on to attend the same university. And we happened to be taking this French course together. I'll need to take things step by step, like confirming whether she has any connections to Hayashi's ex. But if anyone can persuade Hayashi better than I could, it's obviously her. But still, it's awkward. It's not an interesting story, so I won't go into details, but just like with Hayashi, there was some history between me and Kasahara back in high school. Even though we enrolled in the same university, the number of times we've spoken on campus up to now is exactly 0. It's not like I never saw her outside of this lecture, either. I've seen her around during lunch breaks and such plenty of times, but I never felt any particular urge to go talk to her. And the fact that she never tried talking to me either suggests she probably felt the same way. So for us to suddenly start a conversation now, even if it's about her close friend, it's still awkward. That's not all. Back in high school, Kasahara was one of the popular girls, part of a top-tier group, always cheerful and well-liked even by students from other classes. In fact, she might have even been more popular with the guys than the stronger-willed Hayashi. That popularity clearly hasn't faded in college either. In short, there are always people around her. To be honest, this might be hard to believe, might catch you off guard, but despite appearances, I'm a troublemaker. I've made more girls cry than I can count. I've been yelled at by just as many guys. I've even gotten into fights just from making eye contact. So I really can't imagine a situation where I'd get to casually talk to Kasahara. Even now, before the lecture starts, she's chatting away with a group of assertive-looking girls, kind of like Hayashi. Sigh, yeah, this isn't gonna work. Time to come up with a new plan. The French class ended without incident, and in the end, I never got the chance to talk to Kasahara. I know I can't afford to waste time if I want to solve this problem, but no matter how hard I try, I still haven't come up with a game-changing idea. And just like that, time continued to pass, mercilessly and swiftly. At lunch, I ate the bento Hayashi had made for me. It was a 2-tier box. The top layer was plain white rice. The bottom was filled with side dishes. Alongside the down-to-earth items I'd asked for, like kimpira gobo, was one thing that stood out: octopus-shaped sausages. The thought that the queen herself had taken the time to slice the sausages into little octopus shapes, honestly, it was kind of funny. But taste-wise, it was just plain good. That was probably the highlight of my day. From there, the rest of the afternoon flew by, and I found myself heading home. In the end, I didn't come up with anything good. Walking down the road at night, I crossed my arms and groaned to myself. I felt a bit at a loss. But still, there has to be something. By the time I got close to my apartment, I made sure to clear my head. I didn't want Hayashi to catch on to what I'd been thinking. Even just a little, I wanted to let her look away from the nightmare she was living through. I'm home. Welcome back. We exchanged a simple greeting as I stepped through the door. After washing my hands and gargling, I headed to the living room. I'm going to warm up dinner now. Yeah. You want to take a bath first? Sure. In the corner of the living room, I noticed the clothes I wore yesterday had been neatly folded and stacked. This morning, I'd wondered if Hayashi had really washed my clothes along with hers, and I guess she had. On top of that, she'd hung them up to dry and even folded them afterward. The bathwater was just right. Maybe she had timed it with my return. I could even hear the microwave finishing its heating cycle from the bathroom. Once I'd washed my hair, face, and body, I stepped out of the bathroom. Just finished heating. Thanks. Lined up on the small table were white rice, miso soup, salad, and nikujaga. Carefully prepared dishes I wouldn't even attempt to make myself. Hey Hayashi. What? Isn't this a bit much? Huh? Hayashi tilted her head, clearly confused. That's on me. What I said was way too vague. Not enough context, not enough tact. I mean, aren't you overdoing it a little, just because I'm coming home? This was just normal at my last place. I went silent. I really wish she wouldn't bring up her previous home. It's hard to respond. Well, to be honest, I was surprised too. You go way overboard with the cleaning. Looks like it was my turn to get scolded. Narrowing her eyes, Hayashi suddenly had that same intimidating air she had in high school. Scary. You acted all reluctant, but I was planning to clean everything myself. Turns out, I didn't need to lift a finger. Well, cleaning gives you clear results. Huh. With most things, even if you work hard to solve them, it's hard to see any results. But with cleaning, you act and see immediate, visible results. And even if you mess up, it's easy to improve on the next try. That's why it's good. Don't really get it, but I can tell you're uptight. Fair. You are uptight. Idiot. She scolded me, even though she brought it up. How unfair. Well, whatever. I turned my attention to the two neatly plated meals. You could have just eaten without me. You knew I'd be home late. Sure, it's fine for you. You're not here when I'm eating. But I have to sit here and watch while you eat right. So, then I get hungry again. What? I get hungry again. Oh, right. Watching someone eat makes you hungry. I don't get it. Is that just a girl thing? I mean, they do make pilgrimages to try out viral foods they see on social media. Gluttons, the lot of them. Still, you really can do all the housework, huh? What's with that, you're full of surprises tone? That's not the tone I used. Then what was it? It was surprise. That's literally the same thing, just more emphatic. Well, obviously. After all, I witnessed Hayashi's housework skills firsthand during the disaster that was our second-year culture festival. It's only natural I wouldn't expect her to be this capable after just a short time apart. Well, when it comes to stuff like this, I guess I have to give him some credit. Hayashi spoke with a reluctant tone. As I suspected, her current housework skills came from being forced to learn under her ex's demands, which made it harder to praise her honestly. But maybe it was because she said that a certain feeling started to surface. Take it easy around here, will you? Why do you think you came to this place in the first place? Why are you lecturing me? Good question. Ahate. There was no real explanation. I just laughed to brush it off. You haven't changed at all, being that careless. What? I went out of my way to keep things light, to keep the mood up. Was my joke really that bad? Huh? Well, I wouldn't say it was terrible. Right. That was just me being polite. Huh? So basically my joke was terrible? No way. Wait, that was supposed to be a joke. I turned my gaze away from Hayashi. For some reason, I felt kind of embarrassed. Anyway, the reason I came here, isn't it obvious, to get away from him? She composed herself and answered, well, yeah, that too. But more than that, wasn't it to get some rest? What, you think I look worn out or something? Yeah. Why did she always have to sound so hostile? When I answered bluntly, Hayashi glared at me. Why the glare? Well, she might be putting up a front, but there's no doubt she's exhausted. She probably doesn't realize it herself, but if she wasn't mentally worn out, there's no way she'd accept help from someone she hated as much as she hated me in high school. I'm not tired or anything. You're so stubborn. It was hard not to roll my eyes. So, can't you cut back on how much housework you're doing? Hey, can I ask something? What? If you're hiding someone in your place and asking them to help with chores, shouldn't your complaints be more like, can't you do a better job with the cleaning? Or something. Why would they? It's just housework, they can do it themselves. You're really not cut out for living with someone, are you? Am I? Well, if Hayashi says so, I guess I am. I wasn't convinced, but I figured I'd just go with it for now. When you entrust something to someone else, it means you're okay with it not going exactly the way you want. If you're going to complain, then you shouldn't hand it off to someone else. Sure, if we're talking about a job, I can kind of get that mentality. But this is just housework, you know. Ah, I feel that. Do you really? Not at all, I was just playing along. Don't act like you're doing me a favor. I absolutely was doing you a favor. Hayashi looked exasperated. In what way was that a favor to me? Just goes to show what happens when you've got all these uptight little quirks. Very educational. Educational in what way? Whatever it meant, I could tell it definitely wasn't a compliment. Well, anyway, I get what you're saying. I don't agree with it, but I get it. Glad to hear it. Yeah, so about cutting back on housework, no can do. Why not? Even today, I probably spent like half the day doing chores and the other half not. No, maybe it was more like 40-60. Honestly, I had a lot of free time. And you still turned out all that? That's impressive. Don't be sarcastic. I wasn't being sarcastic, but Hayashi gave me an annoyed look, so I decided to let it go. To be honest, I wasn't even feeling super motivated to do chores today. I was just really bored, and before I knew it, I was already doing them. Bored, huh? Now that I thought about it, Hayashi didn't have a phone anymore because her ex destroyed it. Back in high school, I never once saw her not on her phone. These days, it's rare to see any young person not on their phone. Why not watch some TV or something? TV's boring. So it's not that you're bored, it's that you're picky and ended up with nothing to do. I couldn't help feeling a little exasperated with my guest. Still, so she's bored, huh? What did you usually do at your ex's place? Her ex was the one who destroyed her phone. I figured if I asked about how she used to spend her time back then, maybe I could get a hint for how to help her now. Sorry. But I realized it right after I said it. Bringing up her time with that guy was like picking at a scab that hadn't healed. It's fine. Could you not make that face like you just killed a puppy or something? Sorry. So, what was I doing back then? Let's see, housework. We're back to square one. Ahaha, I know, right? You do know. Can't be helped. Every time he came home, he'd nitpick about whether I did the chores properly. I was always running myself ragged trying to keep up. You sound like a salaryman dealing with a power-harassing boss, I thought absently. When you're that mentally drained, you just keep thinking, I have to do this and that, and before you know it, the day's over. Stop. You're breaking my heart. Ahaha, it's totally your fault, you know. Hayashi laughed, teasing, surprisingly cheerful even. Still, if she had the energy to joke, that was a good sign. Anyway, that was pretty useless info, huh? Yeah, but I can't just lie around all day either. Sleeping too much actually makes you tired, doesn't it? Yeah, that's true. I stood up, remembering something. I reached for the tablet tucked away in the TV cabinet. Still holding the tablet, I grabbed a wet wipe and cleaned the screen and edges before handing it to Hayashi. Here. Hi. Hayashi tilted her head, looking puzzled. It's an old tablet I don't use anymore. A modern marvel of technology. Sure, but that phrasing, though. Are you sure it's okay? Yeah, I've got a newer one. It's in my bag. Oh, really? Yeah. I see. Hayashi looked a little hesitant. It had been 3 days since I started sheltering her here. Even though I treated her like a guest, she never acted entitled. Sometimes she slipped back into her high school behavior, but deep down, she was still being considerate. Now, on top of letting her stay here, I was offering her a tablet. Of course she'd hesitate. I'm not using it anymore. No reason not to put it to good use, right? Yeah. Don't just do housework. Have fun with this too. Remember why you came here in the first place. Okay, but usually people say, don't just play around, make sure you're helping with the housework too, you know. Ignored. Here. Thanks, then I'll borrow it. Yeah. The weight in my right hand disappeared as Hayashi took the tablet. For a while, she just sat there quietly, seemingly overcome by emotion at being reunited with an electronic device. But soon, her eyes lit up with joy. While she was absorbed in that, I went back to the TV shelf, grabbed the tablet charger, and handed it to her. After some back and forth looking for an outlet, Hayashi successfully started charging the tablet. Then, lying face down on the bed beside me as I watched TV, she began fiddling with the powered-on tablet. Seeing her cheerfully tapping away at the screen made me feel a little happy, too. And that's when it happened. Yamamoto. Hayashi called out to me, What? I'm giving this back for just an hour. An hour? Why the time limit? Still face down on the bed, Hayashi held the tablet out to me. I froze. The browser I had last used before putting the tablet away was open to its bookmarks. This tablet, once recharged from a dead battery, would return to the screen it had been on before powering down. I must have been too excited about my new tablet at the time, thinking no one else would use this one, and left the browser's bookmarks open without a second thought. And in those bookmarks, well, I can't say it aloud, but let's just say there were several links to certain questionable sites. My deepest thanks. Quietly, solemnly, I took the tablet and began wiping the bookmarks clean. My face was burning. Damn it. If I'd known this would happen, I wouldn't have handed over the tablet so carelessly. I should have wiped the whole thing before giving it to her. Yamamoto. What? So you do have a sex drive, huh? Don't tease me. Hata. Face buried in the pillow, Hayashi let out a quiet laugh. She kicked her feet playfully, like she couldn't wait for the tablet to finish formatting. Chapter 5. The Sleep-Deprived Queen. It was the morning of the 4th day since I began sheltering Hayashi Megumi. As usual, I woke up at my regular time. I immediately sat up, straightened my back, and found myself smiling at the clear blue sky beyond the opened curtains. Climbing out of my futon, I folded it and placed it in the corner. As always, I was looking forward to my favorite hobby, cleaning. Yesterday, I had focused on the bathroom. I had already decided back then what I'd clean today. Opening my closet, I rummaged through a variety of cleaning supplies I'd bought from TV shopping channels, online shops, and even Tokyo's miscellaneous goods stores, and picked out what I'd be using today. The balcony of my room is relatively spacious for a one-person apartment. When I went apartment hunting, one of the reasons I chose this place was precisely because of that. Thanks to that, my balcony is particularly rewarding to clean. I started by sweeping the floor with a broom. I think the last time I cleaned the balcony was about 2 weeks ago. Since then, we'd had a few squalls, sudden summer downpours, which left the balcony noticeably grimy. After sweeping up the dust, I wiped down the laundry pole and the railing. Then I turned my attention to the windows. First, I used detergent to clean them, followed by a dry wipe. I repeated the same process on the inside. Finally, I moved on to the window tracks. I used a cleaner and a small brush to carefully scrub away the dirt bit by bit. Whoa, that's nasty. Why is it that cleaning something filthy makes you feel so fired up? I couldn't hide my excitement at seeing the grime come off the window tracks, and then I realized what I'd done. I'd shouted. Hope that didn't wake Hayashi. NGH. So much for wishful thinking. She woke up. Just like yesterday, Hayashi looked groggy as she came to. Her eyes were half-lidded with sleep, and even though she sat up, she was swaying unsteadily like a roly-poly toy. Morning. Her voice was even huskier than usual. Hey. Good morning. Sorry I woke you up. What time is it? 6 a.m. Seriously, then I'll get up. Now that I think about it, Hayashi was already awake sometime in the 5 o'clock hour yesterday. But this morning, she hadn't stirred at all until now. Of course, I never asked her, my guest, to wake up early, and honestly, I'd have preferred she kept sleeping. Still, despite her lethargic demeanor, maybe out of a sense of responsibility, she tottered off toward the washroom. I figured I should hurry up and finish cleaning too. My first class today didn't start until second period, so I had a bit of time, but getting to campus early is never a bad thing. As I continued cleaning the tracks, Hayashi emerged from the washroom. You were yelling this morning. Something fun happened. She asked me. Apparently, she remembered waking up to my voice, even half asleep. I was cleaning. Yeah. And the dirt, it just kept coming off like super easily. Yeah. It got really fun, and before I knew it, I shouted. Saying it out loud made me feel a little embarrassed. Oh, I get that. You do. Yeah, when you get excited, you just blurt things out. I fell silent. Coming from someone who came onto me on day 1, that kind of talk felt suggestive. Anyway, sorry. I overslept. Totally unaware of how I felt, Hayashi apologized. It's fine. If anything, you're still up early. I kinda played on the tablet too much. That didn't really answer what I said. Still, she gave a half apology as she started preparing breakfast, looking somewhat guilty. That tablet had caused a whole incident when I handed it to her last night, but now it looked like it was just keeping her entertained. That was a relief. Hayashi quickly finished prepping breakfast. She brought it to the living room, and once I'd finished cleaning and washed my hands, I sat down at the table too. Let's eat. Yeah, thanks for the food. We began eating. The TV was off, it was a quiet breakfast. Sorry, it's a light meal, I'll make a proper lunch later. Don't worry about it, sorry for making things hectic. You're not the problem. It's my fault for not managing myself better. You're more of the type who bottles things up than I thought. Like when I first brought her here, she was fully ready to go back to her ex's place. Or when she insisted on getting a part-time job just to avoid burdening me. or how seriously she's taking being a little late with breakfast prep. I'd known her since high school, but I never realized this was what she was like. If I can't do what I'm supposed to, then I deserve to be criticized. But I didn't say anything. I don't remember assigning you any tasks either. You need to speak up more. You're the homeowner here. For some reason, she decided to lecture me. Well, if I had to say anything to her, it'd be that she should learn to slack off a little more. I didn't respond to that. Figured I'd draw a line here before she spiraled deeper into guilt. Otherwise, I'd just end up having to tiptoe around her, and that sounded exhausting. But then again, what could I say to change the subject? I happened to glance toward the bed and spotted the black, glossy tablet. So, was the tablet fun last night? Yeah. Good, I gave it to you so you could enjoy it. We modern folk can't live without gadgets. Living like it's the Stone Age would have sucked. Do well. Yeah, I guess. Hayashi seemed a little more relaxed now. What were you doing on it? Hi. Never mind. Just anything you can talk about is fine. I was just curious. I realized that if someone asked me something like that, I'd probably tell them to butt out of my private life. So I added the disclaimer just in case. Though maybe I didn't need to be so cautious. The tablet was mine to begin with, after all. Asking how she used it shouldn't be a big deal. And if she was spending money on some dark rabbit hole like gacha games, that would throw off the budget I'd estimated for housing her. Still, I doubted she'd use it like that. Over the past 4 days, I'd learned that the girl I once thought of as selfish in high school actually had a strong sense of responsibility, a warm heart, and a generous spirit. And yet back then, she hated me. That's kind of terrifying when I think about it. Just watched videos mostly. I figured she might be reluctant, but with a hint of hesitation, Hayashi answered my question. Videos, I see. Now that I think about it, after I closed my eyes last night, I'm pretty sure I heard some audio coming from the bed. Oh yeah, what kind of videos? Probably playful cats or dogs messing around with people, something like that. It's kinda hard to explain. Hi. Wanna watch? Just the other day, Hayashi had said that using electronics during meals was bad manners. And yet now, as if forgetting her own words, she picked up the tablet and began tapping at it while still eating. Well, maybe she just found something she really liked and wanted to share it with me. The video that appeared on the tablet, in place of the television, was about 10 minutes long. The lines were read in an electronic voice, telling a short story. There were 4 main characters: a timid couple, an unreasonable store clerk, and someone who turned out to be a big deal. The timid couple had made a reservation at a fancy restaurant for their anniversary. Even though they were properly dressed, they were turned away by a rude employee. Upset, they went instead to a restaurant they were familiar with and vented to the manager about what had happened. That manager, as it turned out, had once been the head chef at the fancy restaurant. After hearing the story, he went straight over to scold the current manager, resulting in the rude employee getting fired. A typical story in the Mito common format. What you'd call a classic, justice prevails narrative. Apparently, these kinds of videos are now dubbed satisfying justice videos by younger viewers. They even have their own hashtags. See, isn't it fun? Yeah, I guess. I agreed, at least for the moment. It wasn't like I found it boring. But to be honest, I don't like that kind of video. They're too focused on the thrill of punishing someone, and the plot's always full of holes. The characters act inconsistently, and the story lacks any real depth. Worst of all is how the protagonists don't use their own power. They rely on someone else's authority to take down whoever pissed them off. That kind of narrative reeks of mean-spiritedness from the creator. There are times when you can't respond to someone who treated you unfairly. Times when even if you do fight back, it won't matter. In those cases, I don't think it's wrong to lean on someone else's strength. But why make the protagonists so passive? They wanted to punish the employee who turned them away. Then, why not have them actually say that? In the end, the guy got fired because of what the couple said, but the story conveniently shields them from any responsibility. No matter how much of a jerk he was, if you drive someone into a corner, you should at least feel some sense of responsibility. Stories that go out of their way to let people avoid responsibility for their own words and actions, I just can't stand them. Well, personal preferences aside, I saw several red progress bars beneath some of the videos, indicating they'd already been watched. So Hayashi had probably stayed up all night binging these. Given her current situation, maybe she found it hard to stop. What part did you think was fun? Huh? I mean, what part of the video just now did you think was fun? Pleased that I'd shown interest, Hayashi asked with a bright smile. A clear, open smile I'd never seen on her face before. Please don't ask me that while smiling like that. Sure, I agreed with her that it was fun, but come on, you totally gave off the vibe that I had to agree with you, right? You're not totally innocent here either, you know? As sweat trickled down my back, I looked away. I was pretty sure my mouth was twitching. Hey, Yamamoto. Ahem. Did you actually not like it? Did you just say that to be nice? Hey. Could you not be sharp only at times like this? Seeing Hayashi puff out her cheeks and hang her head sadly made me feel like I had to say something to fix this. And no, that's not it at all. Not even a little. Why does every single word you say have a question mark at the end? That's just, I'm not great at talking to people, okay? Sometimes my intonation gets weird. Got it. Yeah. Just to be clear, don't let yourself be convinced by such a half-assed excuse. So, what did you think was fun about it? I went quiet. If I had to follow the video's logic, I guess I could say it was fun seeing the terrible employee get fired. But for me, that was actually the most boring part. If I bash the story too much, though, I'll probably make her even more upset or worse, piss her off. There are people who can't manage risk at all, huh? I thought it was funny how dumb that clerk was. A typically cynical answer from me, but it avoided directly criticizing the video's content. Let's see how this goes. I held my breath and watched for her reaction. Hayashi said, Totally. She got it. Anyway, make sure you're getting enough sleep, all right. It's bad for your health. Yeah. Suddenly, Hayashi nodded with a more serious look. Thanks for the meal. Yeah. We finished breakfast, and I started getting ready for university. I packed my textbooks into my bag, passed behind Hayashi as she did the dishes, and headed into the washroom to change out of my sleepwear. I don't have work today. Okay. I'm heading out. Have a good day. As I left the house, I found myself thinking again. Why had Hayashi gotten so into those kinds of videos? I'd assumed earlier it was because they resonated with her current situation. But if that's really the case, maybe deep down, she does want to see her ex punished. If that's true, then maybe, just maybe, I can persuade her again to report him to the police. Where is her ex now, and what is he doing? I wanted to know how much time we had left. Hayashi can't stay in my apartment forever. Sooner or later, this arrangement will become unsustainable. Before that happens, I have to eliminate every source of anxiety for her. But the most important thing for that isn't finding someone with power who can fight on her behalf, like in that video. What Hayashi really needs is to take that first step herself. The only thing I can do is give her a little push from behind, which means the most important thing I can do right now is probably to open the path for Hayashi to meet with Kasahara, her former best friend. It didn't work out yesterday, but today, for sure, with that determination, I arrived at the university. She's not here. I should have known I wouldn't be able to find Kasahara, someone I only ever interacted with in French class, on such a huge university campus. The end. By dusk, with nothing to show for my efforts, I was walking home. I felt a little weighed down. After all that talk I gave to Hayashi, acting like I had everything figured out, I didn't expect to be the one completely failing to make any progress. I didn't feel like going home. The thought just crossed my mind. Maybe now I kind of get how salarymen with families feel when they don't want to head back after work. Not really. And yet, it was exactly at times like this that I somehow ended up getting back to my apartment earlier than usual. Funny how that works. I stood outside, looking up at my own apartment. Then I noticed something odd. The lights in my room weren't on. Even if I'd come back right after class, it was already 7 p.m. Without the lights on, it would be far too dark to do anything inside. That's when it hit me, a bad feeling. I'd just been thinking about how I didn't want to go home, and now my pace was picking up. The other day, Hayashi had told me something. That while I was out at university, she'd quietly slipped out of the apartment. Said she went to the supermarket and picked up a job listing magazine. No way. No way, I'd just been wondering earlier. Where is her ex now, and what is he doing? Don't tell me. Don't tell me. Her ex spotted her while she was out alone the other day, figured out where she is, and now. He's come to take her back. I ran up the apartment stairs and stood in front of my door. I reached into my pocket for the key, but in my haste, dropped it. Clatter, the metallic sound echoed and my anxiety spiked. I jammed the key into the lock and swung the door open. The room was silent. Like a shell, completely emptied out. I stepped in, took off my shoes, and walked across the kitchen floor. The creaking of the boards grated on my ears, then into the living room. Spii. Hayashi was asleep on the bed. Seriously. You're just sleeping. Spipii. Don't talk back with your sleep sounds. I muttered under my breath. Still, that was one peacefully blissful face. I didn't have the heart to wake her. After all the emotional exhaustion from life with her ex, and now having to live with me, everything must have caught up to her. Looking closer, I saw laundry left hanging out on the balcony. And in the kitchen, chicken marinating in a plastic bag, prepped for dinner. For now, I walked over to the sink and washed my hands. NGH. I hadn't meant to wake her, but the sound of the running water stirred her. Sorry. Did I wake you? I'd purposely used the kitchen sink instead of opening the door to the washroom, thinking the noise would be less likely to wake her. Guess I miscalculated. Sitting up just like she had that morning, Hayashi squinted at me sleepily through half-closed eyes. I'm so sorry. Then, the moment she was fully awake, she scrambled to her feet and apologized in a panic. Flustered, she tried to tame her bedhead with her fingers as she rushed toward the kitchen. Ow. She bumped her right foot against the wall between the living area and the kitchen, losing her balance. The moment unfolded in slow motion. Even though I was in the middle of washing my hands, my body reacted before I could even think to turn off the faucet. As she began to topple, I reached out and caught her in both arms. I felt the softness of her body against mine, and even though we used the same shampoo, there was a surprisingly sweet scent wafting from her. Careful, would you? Hayashi didn't say a word. On the other hand, my heart was pounding. The way she'd lost her balance, the lingering softness in my arms, and the faint, sweet scent still clinging to the air, it all threw my pulse out of rhythm. Owa. Hayashi muttered, "It hurts." Seemed like she'd really hit her foot hard. In that instant, the tension in my chest completely disappeared. Idiot. Shut up. That's what you get for jumping up in a panic. I said shut up. Hayashi roughly pulled herself out of my arms. With a huff and a pout, she turned away and stood in the kitchen. Well, honestly, her getting mad was easier to deal with than having her apologize nonstop. Sorry. Just as I thought that, she apologized again. I was supposed to handle the chores, and yet I already skipped out on them. You finally got to enjoy yourself for once. It's fine to take a break now and then. It's not fine. Why not? I wanted to ask, but I had a good sense of what she was thinking. Hayashi probably felt like her reason for being allowed to stay here was that she was taking care of the housework. So skipping it, even once, made her feel guilty. It's a bit like how a new employee at a black company feels when some executive or CEO smugly tells them to earn their pay. I hate that kind of thinking. People who say things like that act like, if you're not performing at a certain level, you don't even deserve a wage. It's blatant disregard for workers. Hayashi might have reached that conclusion with the same kind of mindset. Whether or not her ex had anything to do with that process, I don't know. But right now, that wasn't the issue. The issue was that, even if I told her, you don't need to do chores, she probably wouldn't accept it. No matter the reason, she had declared she'd do the housework while staying here, and now she'd failed to follow through. That to her was enough to feel guilty, and that's why she apologized to me. Hayashi, why didn't you do the chores today? Hi. I'm asking for the reason. Why did you end up falling asleep? Hayashi lowered her head. Maybe she thought my tone meant I was mad. Back in high school, when she was cornered, she'd usually act defiant, but not now, it was different. I stayed up too late last night. She answered quietly, still looking down. And so you got sleepy during the day. Yeah. I see. I let out a sigh. Then the solution's simple. Just don't stay up so late that you end up oversleeping during the day. Hi. If a problem comes up, all you have to do is find a way to deal with it. Sitting around feeling guilty is a waste of time. You're not mad. Mad, why would I be? I frowned a little as I said it. You think I'd get mad over one little slip-up with housework? It was obvious from her behavior that she thought I might be angry. Sure, she made a mistake, but that didn't mean I had any intention of scolding her for it. But still. Hayashi, let me share one of my golden rules with you. What? No one dies from making a mistake. She didn't respond. I took a breath to continue. People mess up over and over again throughout their lives, with work, chores, relationships, whatever, and when they do, they regret it. They get depressed. Sometimes they even feel like they want to die. But the strange thing is, no matter how painful the failure is, people don't actually die from it. That just shows how small those mistakes really are, even the ones we think are unbearable. Get it? Yeah. Right. So there's no point in beating yourself up over something like that. Yeah. Hayashi, try thinking about it the other way around. Let's say someone you know messed up their job, and you were the one affected by it. You got upset, you got mad at them. When that happens, what are you thinking? After the yelling, what do you actually want from them? An apology? No, you want them not to make the same mistake again. You don't want to deal with the fallout a second time. That's how most people think, because it's just a work mistake. And that's exactly why I'm telling you, no one dies from screwing up. Hayashi stared at the floor in silence. When someone fails, the most important thing isn't the apology. That's not real sincerity. True sincerity is looking at what went wrong, figuring out why, and making sure it doesn't happen again. Before I knew it, I was halfway through a lecture, even though I'd said I wasn't mad. In other words, if you've identified the cause and found a way to fix it, then you're fine. You won't repeat the same mistake again. Right. Yeah. Hayashi nodded deeply. Yeah. Yeah, I swear, I'll never let this happen again. Then that's the end of it, okay. Yeah. She nodded again, then gave a wry smile. You know, you're really kind of enlightened or something. Hard to believe we're the same age. It's honestly a little creepy. Hayashi. What? That was rude. Now I am gonna get mad. Ahaha, I'm kidding. So, you really don't die from failing, huh? What's that supposed to mean? Sorry. I don't disagree with you or anything. It's just that ideas never existed in my head before. It's not some grand philosophy or anything. No, you're right though. And honestly, watching you makes it easy to believe. But it's more than that. More than that, what does she mean? I tilted my head in confusion. I think this is what a real couple living together looks like. To accept each other's mistakes, to search for ways to fix them together, to not be dismissive, but to worry alongside them, to offer encouragement with empathy, to make time for each other, to face things side by side, and to build a better life together. The two of us creating something together. Hayashi's words sounded almost like a pointed jab at someone. That kind of relationship didn't exist when I was living with him. That's probably why things didn't work out between us. I see. I didn't say much, but I couldn't help feeling a small urge to disagree. Despite the fact that she used to hate me back in high school, she volunteered to do the housework here. She risked the chance of running into her ex, even considered getting a part-time job to ease the strain on my finances. Those actions, supporting someone, offering encouragement, making time, aren't they exactly the kind of things she says she wants from a relationship? Most likely, even with her ex, she tried to give what she's giving me now. Back in high school, she could barely cook, but now she's improved a lot. She doesn't complain about doing chores. She's reliable. Since she's been here, I haven't heard a single word of complaint about daily life. Seeing her now makes it obvious. It makes it painfully obvious. Hayashi, the reason your life with him didn't work out. It wasn't your fault, the violence, the control, the emotional manipulation. The one who was wrong was the guy who treated you like a tool. We're not exactly a couple, though. That's true. Hayashi laughed. Since we reunited, I haven't seen her smile all that much. In contrast, I've seen her look gloomy, anxious, or deeply sad more times than I can count. Funny thing is, even when the reason is trivial, seeing her smile never feels like a bad thing. Hey, Yamamoto. What? Lately, I've been thinking. Thinking what? Before I could ask, Hayashi continued. I should have talked to you more back in high school. I said nothing, not because I disagreed, far from it. Funny. I was just thinking the same thing. Ever since I took her in, I've gotten to learn so much about her. That she's still as strong-willed as ever. That she's surprisingly easy to read. That she's got a clumsy side. And most of all, that she's deeply devoted to those she cares about. Girls labeled as queen bees usually act like selfish tyrants. But she's sure, Sometimes she still shows flashes of that aloof, untouchable, queenly persona. But when she feels indebted to someone, she'll throw everything aside to repay it. She has that kind of spirit. If we had talked more in high school, if we had gotten closer, maybe we could have had a much better high school experience. That's why I thought it too. That I should have had more honest conversations with Hayashi back then. That's a good thing though. To realize that, for both of us. Still, I don't like regrets. Reflection is necessary. But wallowing in failure, letting it consume you, that's a waste. If you believe something was a mistake, then figure out a solution so you don't repeat it. That's all there is to it, because one mistake won't kill us. It's not some permanent goodbye. We can still always start over. After hearing what I said, Hayashi gave a shy smile and briefly lowered her head. And then, yeah. She looked up again, beaming, and gave a strong, confident nod. Chapter 6, The Hysterical Queen. It was the morning of the 5th day since I started hiding Hayashi Megumi. As usual, I woke up early and began cleaning the room. Early morning cleaning always feels good. It's like clearing away all of yesterday's debts at the start of a new day. Morning, Hayashi. Hayashi woke up earlier than she did yesterday when she overslept. Maybe to avoid repeating that mistake, she had gone to bed earlier last night than the night before. Thanks to that, she woke up at 5:30 a.m., an hour after I did. Today's early rise was clearly a result of reflecting on yesterday's failure. Seeing her like that reminded me again of just how earnest she is. Still, you could have just kept sleeping, you know. Hayashi tied her hair up into a ponytail and headed to the kitchen. As I continued cleaning, I started to hear the sounds of cooking from the kitchen. Once I finished tidying up, I went to check on her. The breakfast was clearly more elaborate than yesterday's, and there was even a bento. It's almost ready. Maybe she could see the end of the cooking in sight, because she let out a lazy yawn. Don't look at me. Embarrassed, Hayashi puffed out her cheeks and blushed. Not long after, breakfast was laid out on the table. Thanks, you could have just slept in a bit more. Shut up, it's fine, okay. It's my choice. Fair enough, it's just, it makes me feel like I forced you. If you were the one forcing me, I would have slept in even longer. I totally get that. After all, back in high school, Hayashi didn't like me. If someone she disliked forced her to do something unpleasant, it'd be natural for her to act rebellious. Especially Hayashi, she wouldn't just stop at being defiant. She'd probably go full queen mode and start making me do the chores. If that had happened, I'd have been totally screwed. I realized that the relationship we have now was only possible because I managed to make the right choice at every turning point. If I'd messed up even once, I don't even want to think about it. You should be grateful, Hayashi was smiling. It's because you're such a meddlesome pain that I'm this motivated right now. And I'm supposed to be grateful for that. Because what she's saying is basically, everything is thanks to me, right? If anything, she should be the one thanking me. There's no reason I should be the one being told to be grateful. I see. Thanks. I could have argued back, but if a simple thank you could keep her spirits up, then it was worth it. For some reason, Hayashi suddenly stopped cooking and looked down. Saying thanks like that. She trailed off, silence followed. It's weird when you just say it so straightforwardly. It's not weird at all. When I feel grateful, I say thank you. Just saying it makes both of us feel good, doesn't it? Of course I'm going to thank you. Yeah, I get that. Right. I get it, but still, Hayashi let out a small groan. Well, whatever. After thinking it over, she seemed to decide it wasn't worth dwelling on. Hey, Yamamoto. Is there anything you want to eat tomorrow? Hi. Something you want to eat, anything. That was sudden. This time it was my turn to groan thoughtfully. I thought I already told you my favorite food. You did. But just because it's your favorite doesn't mean you want to eat it tomorrow, right? Hayashi puffed her cheeks again, sulking a little. I had to admit she had a point, but what do I want to eat? When asked so suddenly, strangely enough, nothing really came to mind. Anything you make is fine by me. I said it, and I wasn't lying at all. Honestly, Hayashi's cooking was even better than what my parents made back home. My stomach was already firmly in her grasp. Yeah, whatever. Hayashi turned away with a sullen look. Just moments ago, she sounded like she was having fun, but now her voice was gloomy. The room went quiet again. Saying, whatever's fine, is the worst answer you can give to someone cooking for you, Really? Really? Didn't your mom ever scold you for saying something like that? Now that she mentioned it, I feel like my mom did get mad at me like Hayashi is now. Hysterically too. Don't say stuff like that, okay? I'll be careful. Make sure you are. Hayashi took a quiet breath. You better not say that to anyone else but me, got it? Ahem. Yeah. The sound of meat sizzling on the frying pan echoed through the room. Not long after, Hayashi finished cooking and placed a single serving of breakfast on the table. Go ahead and eat. She said it flatly. Why? I'm finishing up the bento. All right, then I'll wait. Suit yourself. I figured the bento prep would take about 20 minutes, but I had underestimated her efficiency. Hayashi worked even faster than before, finishing the bento in about 10 minutes. She packed the ingredients into the box and said she'd leave the lid off for now to let it cool. Thanks for waiting. I wasn't waiting at all. Then let's eat. Let's eat. We put our hands together and began breakfast. While eating, we chatted about all sorts of things. Which of our middle schools had the worst reputation? The teacher Hayashi hated back in high school. How the convenience store in front of the nearest station to our high school recently shut down. This morning, we talked a lot, mostly about memories. Now that I think about it, have I ever laughed and chatted with Hayashi like this before? We met in our first year of high school. That was over 3 years ago. This is probably the first time we've ever talked this much. Well, we didn't get along in high school, so I guess that makes sense. Got work today? Nope. After finishing breakfast and getting ready for university, I headed to the front door. What time are you coming back? Around 4, I think. That's early. Don't you ever feel like just hanging out at university or something? Why would I? University is a place to study. I don't think most students nowadays believe that. Even with how much tuition costs. Hayashi gave a small, wry smile. Well, that does sound like something you would say. Yeah. If you say so, I guess that's how it is. Come to think of it, I think this is the first time Hayashi's asked me what time I'd be home. All right then. Take care. Yeah. I stepped out of the apartment. Back in high school, we were always on the verge of an explosion, like 2 countries in the middle of a Cold War. And now, just 5 days later, everything has changed so drastically. Hayashi in high school, and Hayashi this morning. It's obvious her attitude toward me has softened. Even after we reunited, things still felt tense between us at first. She suddenly clung to me and said, "Let's do it," and all that. I told her not to leave the apartment, and she ignored me. She insisted on doing chores in exchange for letting her stay. She got all moody just for slacking off and taking a nap. It's really only been a few days, and yet so much has happened. Hayashi has changed. She's mellowed out, enough to deal with me without wearing a perpetual scowl. Of course, the reason she was able to change is entirely thanks to her own effort, because she wanted to change her situation. She listened to others. She made her own choices, and that's what brought her here. This must be what a real couple's cohabitation is supposed to feel like. She was able to realize just how twisted her past relationship had been. Maybe now, if I suggested it, she wouldn't stubbornly refuse. Maybe she'd be able to choose to report her ex. The way she is now, maybe. Maybe when I get home today, I'll try bringing it up. As I absent-mindedly thought about that, I arrived at the university. After a few lectures, it was lunchtime. I stood alone in the crowded, noisy cafeteria. Today I had classes straight from first period through fifth. No matter how packed the place was, I needed to eat something to get through the rest of the day. Still, I hesitated. It is lunchtime, but man, why are university students always so loud? It's enough to give me a headache. And there was another problem. I looked around the cafeteria, scanning for an open seat. There were a few, technically. But they were either in the middle of groups that had taken over tables or had bags plopped down on them. You couldn't sit without asking, wait for a group to leave, or risk pissing someone off by sitting anyway. Either way's a pain. And then, this way. Gah. Suddenly, someone grabbed my hand from behind and pulled me. The hand was small and soft. Instantly, I was thrown off. I mean, anyone would be startled if someone suddenly grabbed them like that, right? Wait, who even is this? Did someone mistake me for a friend? That seemed the most likely answer. I mean, I don't have any girl friends at this university, but judging from the feel of the hand, this was definitely a girl. This is gonna get awkward either way, might as well clear it up quickly. I turned around, ready to tell her she had the wrong person, and there she was, someone I actually knew. Kei Kasahara. Kasahara Akari. The only person at this university who came from the same high school as me. We were classmates in both our second and third years of high school, and more importantly, she was Hayashi's closest friend. Practically inseparable. You looked like you were struggling to find a seat. Kasahara said playfully, that girlish, high-pitched voice, that carefree smile, that gentle aura. Since high school, Kasahara hadn't changed all that much. It's fine, really, don't worry. If you wait a bit, a seat will open up eventually. It's fine, it's fine. We should help each other out when we're in trouble, right? But still, it's fine, okay. All right. Kasahara may have been Hayashi's best friend, but her personality was completely different. She wasn't overbearing, and she clearly understood how to maintain appropriate distance with others. That said, unlike a certain queen, she had a kind of quiet force behind every word that didn't allow room for argument, and I'd always been weak to that, even back in high school. Overwhelmed by that unspoken pressure, I gave in and accepted the seat Kasahara had secured by the cafeteria window at the end of a long table. She sat down next to me. Across from us, there was a cute backpack and a tote bag placed on the seat. A friend's gonna sit there. Sorry. No need to apologize. You're the one who shared your seat with me. Ehate. That kind of thing feels nostalgic, doesn't it? Does it? I narrowed my eyes slightly and continued. It's been a while, Kasahara. Yeah, it has. Kasahara smiled brightly, without a hint of hesitation. Yamamoto-kun, you've been avoiding me, haven't you? With that cheerful smile, she suddenly dropped a bomb. I tried to keep a neutral expression, but while I might have been able to fool Hayashi, Kasahara definitely noticed my discomfort. I just didn't have a reason to talk to you. So you won't talk to someone unless you have a reason. That's the kind of person I am, you know that, don't you? I guess. Looking down, Kasahara seemed a little lonely. WL, you could have just been the one to say something to me first, right? I did just now. Fair point. Right. Not quite, no good. I was already falling into Kasahara's gentle pace. Thanks for the seat. I appreciate it. No problem. If I was able to help you out, that makes me happy. Geez, stop saying stuff that makes me misunderstand. So, what do you want? Huh isn't an answer. You think you can get away with stuff just by sounding cute. I let out a sigh. What do you want? At my prodding, Kasahara glanced downward for a moment. Back in high school, I often listened to her problems. This seemed to be one of those times, something serious. Yamamoto-kun, do you remember Mego Hayashi Megumi? Didn't expect that name. I remember. You two were noisy as hell, you were so close. Ahaha, noisy, well, yeah. Kasahara lifted her gaze. Did you know Mego moved to Tokyo for university too? Yeah. Have you seen her around anywhere? Seen her? She's literally living at my place right now. I almost said that out loud, but held back. I wasn't sure what her real intention was. Why was Kasahara asking about Hayashi now? I was worried. If I told Kasahara everything, could Hayashi's ex find out where she is? How did Hayashi and her ex even meet? Through social media? A dating app? A mutual acquaintance? Can I really trust Kasahara with the truth? In the end, I was just being paranoid. Until yesterday, I had every intention of talking to Kasahara the first chance I got to get her help convincing Hayashi to report her ex. But because she brought up Hayashi first, I suddenly hesitated. What if? What if Kasahara had introduced Hayashi to her ex? What if she was asking me this because Hayashi's ex told her to find out where Hayashi was? That kind of worst-case scenario flashed through my mind, and I froze. Yamamoto-kun. I must have been making quite the sour face. Kasahara leaned in to get a better look, and I flinched, averting my eyes. My mouth was dry, like that feeling you get when a teacher is about to scold you for something you messed up. Should I say something? Should I keep quiet? Just as I was raising my head, still undecided. Hey, Akari-chan. Who's this guy? In the end, I couldn't choose either option. Kasahara's friend had butted into our conversation, though honestly, that's just an excuse. The real reason was that I chickened out at the last second. Iri-chan. This place is so packed around this time, I hate it. So who's this guy? It's Yamamoto-kun. Oh, someone you know. He's my boyfriend. That's a terrible joke. Kasahara didn't even glance at me. Oh, now that you mention it, I think I've seen him in French class. Never seen you before, though. Still, from how close she seemed to Kasahara, she probably sat nearby during the lectures. Ah, you're that guy who always aces the French quizzes and gets praised by the professor. Yeah, that's me. Not to brag, but I'm smart. I've been complimented plenty by my instructors, not just in French. Wow, that's awesome. Hey, do you have time later? Can you tutor me? Whoa. Iri-chan set down her tray and squeezed in between Kasahara and me. A sweet scent drifted my way. Something soft pressed against my left arm. Wait, was she pressing herself into me on purpose? Iri-chan, that's not gonna work. Hi. Yamamoto-kun has class in third period. How does she know that, really? Kasahara's friend peered up at me with an upward glance. That's right. The one who answered wasn't me, it was Kasahara. See. Her tone left no room for argument. Yeah. Well, it wasn't a lie, I nodded. I see, too bad. Well, let's at least have lunch together. Sure. This Irie person sat down across from Kasahara, and so the three of us began eating lunch together. Whoa, Yamamoto-kun, you can cook too? That's amazing. You can cook, huh? That bento looks really homemade. I guess. I couldn't exactly tell them about Hayashi, so I gave a vague response. After lunch, I parted ways with Kasahara and her friend and headed toward the lecture building, feeling unsettled. In the end, I couldn't bring myself to talk to Kasahara about Hayashi, even though I'd been so convinced the issue needed to be resolved quickly. To pull back at the last second like that. No, if I consider the worst-case scenario, then maybe not saying anything to Kasahara was the right move after all. Regret won't get me anywhere. Right now, I need to think about how to create a situation where I can rely on Kasahara safely and smoothly without any risk. Classes ended, and I headed home. I arrived at my apartment shortly after. I'm home. Welcome back. Hayashi was already in the middle of making dinner. A savory aroma tickled my nose. A safe, smooth way to ask Kasahara for help. I'd been thinking about that the entire way home, and the solution I arrived at was simple and straightforward. My plan. It was to tell Hayashi everything and ask her how she and her ex met, whether Kasahara had any connection to him. That was it. Something so simple. The kitchen was in the hallway, the sound of vegetables being stir-fried. Hey, Hayashi. I called out to her while she was cooking, no time like the present. I figured I'd bring it up right away. She turned off the stove burner and slowly turned to face me. She was smiling, but in an instant that smile twisted and she glared at me. What? Why was Hayashi glaring at me like that? Up until this morning, things between us had been changing. The constant tension from high school had finally started to fade, and we were starting to build a friendlier relationship. So why? Why was Hayashi now staring at me like I was the enemy? In the frying pan was the fried rice she'd been making for me. Come to think of it, she had said earlier that she'd cook something extravagant for dinner tonight, blushing as she said it. That Hayashi was nowhere to be seen. Hayashi, did you meet a girl today? Her voice was cold, like a wife accusing her husband of cheating, but I was innocent. I hadn't met any girls today, and more importantly, how did she even get that idea? No, wait. I had met girls today. Kasahara and that friend of hers, Irie. I'd forgotten because I so rarely got the chance to talk to girls on campus. And Irie had been awfully touchy, too. She'd even had on perfume. Could it have rubbed off on me? So I was right. Hayashi's voice was sharp with accusation. Yeah, I did, so what? From my perspective, it wasn't anything shameful. Why? Hi. Why are you meeting girls? Still, Hayashi pressed me. Why I met with girls? It was for her sake, to resolve her problems. But because it was behind the scenes, I couldn't say that. If anything, it might just make her angrier. So what should I say? I thought about it, and then it hit me. Wait a minute, the real question here is, why do I have to answer to you? I said it without flinching, because, at the end of the day, we're not even dating, are we? We weren't a couple. Hayashi had no right to question who I saw or why. I didn't owe her an explanation, so I said it plainly. I see. Yeah, we weren't dating, so I thought that settled it. I thought that was the end of it. But it was a messed up situation from the start. Apparently, Hayashi didn't see it that way. You're right, we're not a couple. And yet, here I am, living in your house. That was the weird part all along. What? How did it come to this? Hey, Hayashi. Don't touch me. She slapped my hand away when I reached out. Clear hostility. Clear rejection. Choking back sobs, Hayashi turned toward the front door, flung it open, and ran out. Wearing only her loungewear. Without even shoes. The sound of her footsteps echoed down the apartment hallway. It wasn't until then that I finally snapped back to reality. Wait, Hayashi. But I couldn't stay calm. I rushed out after her without even locking the door. But Hayashi was already gone. Chapter 7, The Queen Who Cries for Help. Night had fully fallen. I ran down the quiet street under evenly spaced streetlights. After bolting from Yamamoto's place, I ended up in a silent residential neighborhood. Maybe it was the hour, but there were hardly any people around. Panting heavily, I ran desperately, like I was trying to escape something. I kept glancing behind me, never stopping, and by the time I hit my limit, a single thought struck me. What am I even doing? I hadn't exercised since high school, and my stamina had declined badly. Clutching my trembling knees, I gasped for breath. I took a deep breath in, then out. As sweat from the humid summer night dripped down my forehead, I realized something. I'd run out of Yamamoto's apartment wearing only socks. Running on asphalt had torn a huge hole in them. Under the glow of the round streetlight, I stood there, biting my lip, overwhelmed by shame. Why did I do something like this? That day, I'd reunited with the boy I hated most back in high school. The only reason I called out to him, when I found him working as a sluggish-looking convenience store clerk, was because I'd wanted to bask in self-pity. I wanted to reconfirm the misery of my hellish life in front of the guy I despised most. If I hadn't been in that mindset, I probably wouldn't have spoken to Yamamoto at all. Maybe it was fate. Maybe it was fate that my life had become the complete opposite of what it was in high school. Maybe it was fate that I'd hit my breaking point and wandered the streets in the middle of the night. Maybe it was fate that Yamamoto and I had crossed paths again. Back in high school, I couldn't stand him. He said whatever came to mind, never read the room, and had an annoying attitude. But after watching him these past 5 days, I realized something. Sure, he's still just as cheeky. His way of talking grates on me, and he barges into the things I don't want anyone touching. And yeah, he still can't read the room. Even though I was clearly feeling hurt, he had to go and say it. We're not even dating. There was no need to state the obvious. It just made me angrier. But still, the idea that he says things randomly isn't true at all. You're just being used, you know. Everything he says hits the mark. Even if you mess up, nobody dies. Infuriatingly accurate. Back in high school, I hated him so much that I probably only saw what I wanted to see. I ignored all his good traits. I blew up over every single bad one. That's why, in my mind, my image of him was the worst. It was me. I was the one being rude, showing attitude toward him. I'm the one who's awful. And yet, even so, he still took me in. When I'd given up on life with that man, when I had nowhere to go, he reached out to me. He even said he'd lend me money if I needed it. That hamburger was really good. He said my cooking was delicious, and I slapped away his hand. Why did it end up like this? Back then, when I caught the citrusy scent of perfume on Yamamoto, I was overwhelmed by a feeling I couldn't even describe. Possessiveness, jealousy, hatred. All those emotions swirled inside me, and then Yamamoto went and spoke the plain truth of our situation. That sent everything boiling over. It was a moment of blind emotion. A sudden outburst. But no matter how you frame it, swatting his hand away was a complete betrayal to the person who took me in. Why did I let those feelings control me? Why did I lose my temper like that? Why didn't I try to express what I really felt to Yamamoto? The same way Yamamoto had done for me all along. What do I do now? My lungs hurt from running. But more than that, I was being crushed by an overwhelming sense of loneliness. Even if it was the consequence of my own reckless actions, I'd still run out of Yamamoto's apartment. I slapped away the hand of someone who had been nothing but kind, caring, and generous, and I ran. What's Yamamoto doing now, I wonder? Is he angry, relieved to be rid of a nuisance? If it were me, I'd feel the latter. I have nothing, no education, no money, nothing. Worse, I come with emotional baggage in the form of a messy breakup. If it were me, I wouldn't want to shelter someone like that. I'd want nothing to do with them. But Yamamoto still reached out to someone like me. In just 5 days, how much trouble have I caused him? How many times has he helped me? What I did was ruin all of that. A stupid, selfish mistake. My hands started trembling. It wasn't from the exercise, it was fear. Just before he hit me, that man, him made me feel like this. My hands would shake the same way. I was scared. I was afraid. Afraid that Yamamoto would hate me. That thought terrified me. It's selfish to feel that way about someone I used to hate in high school. But right now, the idea of being hated by him, it scared me so much I was shaking. What do I do? What do I do? What should I do? I don't know. Help me, Yamamoto. I couldn't believe it. That I'd ever find myself wishing for Yamamoto's help. But even so, a strange, unwavering certainty sat deep in my chest. If it's Yamamoto, then surely he'll help me. That day, when we chatted during his break at the convenience store, he said I could stay at his place. Before that, my life was pitch black. Not a glimmer of light around me. My feet were stuck in the muck, like corpses were dragging me deeper into hell. The one who cleared that darkness, the one who lit a small flame in that world, was none other than Yamamoto. If it's Yamamoto, I know he'll help me. Out of breath, I imagined it. He'd find me, scold me with a half-hearted, "What are you doing?" sigh in exasperation, then talk me down with some unarguable logic and drag me back home, even as I protested. Just like these past 5 days, he'd confront me for my foolishness, for my mistake. He'd speak the truth, show me the way, and save me. Footsteps echoed. They weren't sneakers, not sandals either. It was the sound of leather shoes. I knew, from the entranceway of Yamamoto's apartment, that he often wore leather shoes. Being the meticulous type, he liked shoes that needed proper care. But I should have known better. Just hearing leather shoes doesn't mean it's him. In this country, in this city, how many people regularly wear leather shoes? Yamamoto was just one of many. Still, I wanted it to be him. I hoped that the person walking toward me in those leather shoes would be Yamamoto. Hope gave way to expectation, and then to despair. Meg. A familiar voice, but one I didn't want to remember. Even though I was sure of who it was, I still wished, please let it not be him. I was scared to turn around. But I knew I had no choice anymore. Slowly, I turned toward the sound of the leather shoes behind me, and there he was. "Meg, it's really you, Meg." A voice that sounded sincere. A crisp, wrinkle-free dress shirt. Hair parted neatly to the side, and I remembered. He too, like Yamamoto, wore leather shoes every day for work. Seiji-san. His name was Utsumi Seiji, my ex-boyfriend, the very man who had hurt me. Section. 2 months after graduating high school, I was invited to a group date by a girl from my university club. It wasn't unusual for me to go to those kinds of things. Especially after moving to Tokyo for college, away from my parents, I had more free time and more chances to be invited. It wasn't even my first time going to a group date hosted by this friend. It was my third, in fact. All the girls that day spent extra time on their makeup, wore flashy outfits, and seemed unusually fired up. Apparently, the guys that day were all from a major bank, and the girls, hoping to land a rich husband, had their eyes lit up. That kind of stuff didn't interest me. For me, it was just socializing, a way to stay connected. Guys always talked to me at these things. My friend once told me that just knowing I'd be attending was enough for the other side to gather their best guys. And since I wasn't clingy or desperate for male attention, I didn't ruin the vibe, so the girls liked having me around, too. Honestly, I hated how I was just being used, but in Tokyo, where I didn't have any close friends, even that group of girls was precious company. So I told myself it couldn't be helped, and I went. The place we were taken to wasn't some loud chain izakaya, but a chic, privately owned one. Inside, it was dimly lit with fully private rooms. Unlike your average izakaya, it had a touch of class, and the slightly higher food prices gave me a good impression from the start. We were led to a sunken kotatsu-style private room and sat down in a line. The men arrived later and took the seats across from us. Later, we can move seats around. My friend whispered to me, like I care. That was what I thought at the time. Once everyone had arrived, we went around introducing ourselves in a cheerful, relaxed atmosphere. I'm Utsumi Seiji. He was one of them. Back then, I had no idea I'd end up dating him, let alone living with him. My first impression of Seiji-san was that he was a kind, clean-cut guy. He looked young for his age, was easy to talk to, and seemed sincere. Just ordinary. A harmless, average citizen. In high school, if I disliked someone, I'd avoid them completely and relentlessly. Yamamoto was the prime example of that. But even I didn't hate just anyone. It was always a build-up, a bad first impression, something they said or did that rubbed me the wrong way. Later, Seiji-san would end up doing things to me I didn't even want to remember. But in the beginning, my impression of him had been positive. His aura, his words, his manners, they were gentle, and I found him pleasant. At first, he really was kind. There was this pressure from people around us. You two should get together. So we at least exchanged contact info. Surprisingly, I was the one who messaged him first. There wasn't a special reason. I just felt like hanging out with someone, opened my chat app, and there his name was second from the bottom. That night's group date had been pretty fancy, probably because the guys were all working adults. A few of them bragged shamelessly about how well off they were. It was pathetic, but still true, they had money. And Seiji-san was one of them. If he had money, maybe he could show me a different world from what I was used to. Just to be clear, I didn't want to mooch off him. We always split the bill before we moved in together. I just thought, because he had money, he might know about a life I hadn't seen. That kind of thing. Everyone wants a fulfilling life. But in the end, a person's standard of living depends on how deep their pockets are. In high school, I hated living at home. My dad was strict and loud, the kind who enforced outdated curfews. If I got home late, he'd yell and scold me about being more responsible. I hated him. Before telling my dad I wanted to study in Tokyo, I got my mom on my side. I built my case, stood before him, and it ended in a massive fight. He eventually agreed to let me go, but he refused to give me a cent beyond tuition. He wouldn't budge on that. Still, in high school, I thought that was fine. I hated him so much, just getting away was enough. Once I entered college, I had more freedom. The grip my father had on me loosened. Naturally. But at the same time, money troubles increased. I had to work 5 days a week just to scrape by. That's why I thought, I want to see what kind of life someone like Seiji-san lives, what kind of world he sees. On our first date, he came to pick me up in a sedan and took me on a drive. We climbed up into the mountains, visited a dam, and listened to the rush of the water while looking out at the beautiful natural scenery. I still remember how it took my breath away. Did I like him? Not really. But I didn't hate spending time with him, because it felt new, like stepping into a world I'd never known. Seiji-san liked cars. He always made me sit in the passenger seat of his sedan whenever we went anywhere. Let's go somewhere without the car for once. Sitting in the passenger seat of his car, I often found myself in a foul mood. I didn't like cars. My mom never had a driver's license, so for me, the person behind the wheel was always my father. In my mind, cars and my dad were inseparable. And just being in a car brought back memories of all the ways he used to push people away with his words and actions. That's why I didn't like cars. Sorry, I get motion sickness on trains. You take the train to work every day, though. We'll be there soon, just hang in there, okay? Once I got in, there was nothing to do but wait it out. I'd resign myself to watching the scenery pass by through the window. That was the usual routine. Seiji-san had been part of a jazz club back in his student days. Maybe that's why he always played jazz while driving. I didn't really get it, but the music had a calming effect as I stared out the window. That day, the two of us were headed to Atami for sightseeing, driving along the seaside road. Through the car window, I could see the blue sea and white waves. Fishing boats floated in the distance, and nearby, people were casting lines, quietly gazing out at the ocean. It was like a peaceful scene straight out of a drama. Something someone like me, struggling with money, could never experience on my own. A carefree afternoon that didn't feel real. If I stay with him, maybe I can live like this. That was the feeling I had, separate from any affection I might have had for him. There wasn't really a moment where either of us asked the other out. We just sort of slipped into dating. Meg, want to live with me? But living together, that was a clear proposal. And when I agreed, I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a bit of selfish intent behind it. I thought that being with him would make my life better. If someone had said I was blinded by money, I wouldn't have had much to say back. Meg, why'd you serve supermarket deli food for dinner? You've got no taste. Maybe that was my punishment, for taking advantage of his feelings. for trying to tie myself to him without any real attachment. Maybe this was karma. It started about a week into living together, just after I moved out of my old apartment and brought all my stuff to his place. His argument was this: since I'm at work all day and you're at home doing nothing, the least you can do is make a proper meal. I'd told him beforehand that I couldn't cook, but apparently he'd already forgotten. At first, I argued back. For 2 weeks straight, we fought every day. He first laid hands on me when those arguments escalated past the point of no return. The first time he hit me, I glared at him. At first, Seiji-san turned pale, maybe from guilt. But then it was like something clicked. No matter how much of a tomboy I acted or how mouthy I got, I was still no match for an adult man like him in terms of strength. If something bothered him, he'd hit me. If I talked back, he'd kick me. During the day, I'd put cooling patches on the bruises. At night, I'd get hit again. "I'm done, I'm leaving this house." I shouted that so many times I lost count. But I never followed through. Every time I said it, he'd look heartbroken and apologize over and over. For a while after, he'd even stop hitting me. Looking back, not leaving right then was probably what made him grow more violent. He realized he could get away with it. The beatings got worse. Even threatening to leave didn't work anymore. And still, I didn't leave. After giving up my old apartment to move in with Seiji, my parents disowned me. I lost touch with my friends. I had nowhere else to go. "Meg, you've gotten better at cooking lately. At first, your food was barely edible." Sometimes he'd say things like that and praise me, and that made me happy. That's also why I stayed. But I started to realize something. I'd moved in with him thinking it would make my life better, but now my life was anything but rich. Thanks to him, or maybe because of him, I learned all the basic housework skills. But I had no spending money. Pain, both physical and mental, had become the norm. How long am I supposed to live like this? Seiji only had 1 day off a week, Saturdays, when he came home late after a full day of work. That made Saturdays my one and only day of peace. During the day, I'd stare out at the empty parking space from the balcony, and somehow that would calm me. But as night crept in, I couldn't help glancing at the clock more and more often. My heart pounded hard, my hands and feet turned cold, and even standing made me shake. And then I realized, I'm at my limit, I can't take this anymore. I wandered out of the house aimless. There was no destination. Seiji wasn't coming home for a while, so I hadn't bothered to eat dinner. My stomach growled a little. I walked without purpose and ended up at a convenience store I'd never been to before. I figured I'd grab something to eat. Even though I had nowhere to go back to, I knew I'd hit my limit, but in the end I still thought about going back to that house. Yamamoto. And there, in that convenience store, I ran into Yamamoto again. Chapter 8. The Decisive Queen. "Meg, where have you been all this time?" Seiji-san spoke, clearly suppressing his anger. After a month of living together, I'd come to know how good he was at putting on a pleasant facade. That was probably what he was doing now, too. "No, it's fine. At least I found you now. I was worried sick, Meg." It had been 5 days since I stormed out of Seiji-san's house. It was Saturday. Seeing me again after almost a week seemed to have genuinely made him happy. Oh, he's actually happy to see me again. A sharp pang of guilt sprouted inside my chest. I didn't know what expression to wear or how to face him at all. Before I realized it, my eyes were fixed on the floor, avoiding his gaze. "I'm sorry." The apology slipped from my lips instinctively. Back when we lived together, he'd hit me, kicked me, exactly like Yamamoto had warned. I was controlled, cornered. And yet, why did I feel myself shrinking like this in front of him? In the beginning, I had enough courage to argue back at least. But after hearing him lecture me over and over, I'd started doubting myself, almost believing everything he said was true. Eventually, apologizing quickly became a habit, just another way to preserve what little dignity I had left. "Well, it's all right. Let's go home." "Home?" "Yes, home. What's with that look? You don't have anywhere else to go but my place, right?" Seiji-san's tone was annoyed, as if stating the obvious. He was right, though, but he didn't have to put it that way. It irritated me slightly. Yet, considering I'd vanished without a word, I didn't really have the right to feel annoyed. If I felt even the slightest bit of guilt for leaving him without a word. "Come on, Meg. Let's go." It was obvious what would happen if I accepted Seiji-san's invitation. I'd probably get hit again, kicked again, controlled so thoroughly this time that I'd never escape again. How did it come to this? God, I'm such an idiot. I'd always chased after what I didn't have. Back in high school, in university, even when I lived with Seiji-san, I'd always find fault with whatever was right in front of me, never bothering to tough it out, always running away. And now here I was, but I guess there's nothing I can do about it. Seiji-san just reminded me moments ago, I don't have anywhere else to go, and I understand his point. If he's going to support a worthless person like me, it's natural for him to complain a little. So, there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do about it. Or so I tried to convince myself. After all, you're gonna handle all the housework except cleaning, right? At that moment, I remembered there was someone who found value even in someone as worthless as me. Back in high school, I'd always hated that person. He was fussy, stubborn, and I never understood what was going on in his head. I despised him. It's not like we're dating or anything, right? I despised him, and yet, even if you mess up, it's not like anyone's gonna die. Before I realized it, if you're the one who made it, I'll eat anything. I was. Don't touch me. Oh, so that's why. That's why I slapped Yamamoto's hand away earlier. That's why I was angry when I sensed another girl around Yamamoto. In high school, I'd hated Yamamoto. He was fussy, stubborn, and impossible to understand. It'll be too late once something actually happens. He never backed down. Good job, you did your best. And he was annoyingly kind to someone like me. In high school, I'd hated him so much. And yet, being around him felt comfortable. Back then, I hated my nagging dad at home. In university, I had no money and no fun. The month spent living with Seiji-san was a time I didn't even want to remember. I'd always chased after what I didn't have, and it left me feeling empty. This was the first time. The very first time, in high school, I hated Yamamoto. I hated him so much. When we reunited, I initially thought he'd changed, thought he'd become a bit gentler, but I was wrong. After just 5 days of living together, I could see it clearly. Yamamoto hadn't changed at all. From our high school days until now, he'd remained exactly the same. Still fussy, still stubborn, but maybe, just a little, I'd started to understand how he thinks. He'd said it clearly, the morning after we reunited, with one of those twisted introductions that was just like him. I want to help you when you're in trouble. I'd hated him, because he was fussy, stubborn, and impossible to read. But I was wrong, I'd simply chosen to look away. Sure, Yamamoto was fussy, stubborn, and twisted. Isn't that why I'm here in the first place? But more than anyone else, he lived his life selflessly. Like some kind of hero trying to save the world, courageously standing up for others. He had everything I lacked, he had so many wonderful qualities. Being around him felt comfortable. Being protected by someone brave like Yamamoto. Living together, even if only briefly. It was the first time in my life I'd felt at ease. That's why I'd gotten angry seeing the shadow of another girl beside Yamamoto. He'd said he'd protect me, he'd said he'd help me. He'd promised to save me. I felt betrayed by the thought that Yamamoto might abandon me to find happiness with someone else. A jealousy I had absolutely no right to feel. You can stay at my place tonight. But I'd slapped away the hand he'd reached out to me. I know, Yamamoto won't help me again. What I did was repay Yamamoto's kindness with cruelty. If anyone betrayed someone, it was me betraying him. So I'm sure he won't chase after me anymore. That precious, irreplaceable time I had, I threw it away myself. What if? What if Yamamoto were here now, and I could talk to him about what I'm going through? No, that's ridiculous. I know it's impossible. I know that. But still, if Yamamoto were somehow still willing to save me, what would he say to me? Would he mock me, call me a fool? No, he wouldn't do that. Would he get worked up and say he'd protect me? No, I don't think he'd say that either. He would. I know, he'd say this. He'd sit there quietly for a bit, facing me while I looked down with a serious face. He'd wait, thinking it over, and then with a quiet sigh, he'd finally speak. What do you want to do? That's what Yamamoto would say. Not right or wrong, not orders or advice. He'd ask me how I felt. In the end, you're the one who has to decide. He always respected my will, no matter what. If I borrow Yamamoto's words, then right now. Right now is that moment. The most important thing is to have an experience that changes your mindset. And to have that kind of experience, you've got to face things head-on and stop running. You don't need a second chance at life to make it better. If you face the right moment without running, if you truly confront it, then maybe, just maybe, the time for me to change my mindset is now, right now. Yamamoto used to say this too. In the end, people are selfish creatures. Selfish? Yamamoto once said I was selfless, but I've never once believed I was truly selfless. But still, I do try to live with at least a minimum of human decency. And that's not some grand ideal, it's simple. I don't hit people, I don't kick them. No matter how bad of a mood I'm in, I'd never do something like that. Sure, I've argued with people, but I've never once let my emotions spiral into spite and push someone into a corner. But him, you're just being used, you know. Huh. A dry laugh escaped my lips. Meg, what's so funny? I finally get it now. I mean, really get it. The meaning behind Yamamoto's words from back then, that I was just being used. Hit, kicked, broken, controlled, cut off from escape, and made to rely on him. He said it out loud, and I thought I understood. But deep down, I hadn't really tried to face the truth of my situation. But now that I've stopped running, I finally see it. Seiji-san, what is it? I'm not going back with you. Huh? I said I'm not following you back to hell. Meg. There was a time I thought his gentle speech, despite being 5 years older, was kind of charming. But now that I knew his true nature, it was just repulsive. I won't call the police, so just disappear from my sight, right now. W8 Meg, what are you talking about? You don't understand. My hands were trembling before I even realized it. After all the times you hit me, all the times you kicked me, after everything you did to control me, you don't understand. That's all I was to him. In the end, I was just someone who wasn't even worth understanding. Do you have any idea how much I suffered because of what you did to me? And you're seriously saying you don't get it? My voice echoed down the hot summer street, but I didn't care anymore. My blood was boiling. I couldn't stop shaking. I just hated the man standing in front of me with everything I had. If I hurt you, I'm sorry. Sorry, you're apologizing. For what exactly? For hitting you, I'm sorry. Sometimes I just got so irritated, I took it out on you. I really am sorry. Sometimes, you hit me every day and you call that sometimes. But don't you think you were at fault too? What? You never listened to anything I said. So yeah, I got frustrated. I mean, come on, this is all your fault. I tried my best to meet your expectations. You told me to cook, so I cooked. You told me to quit college and be a housewife, so I dropped out. What the hell more did you want? But you never brought in a single cent. That was one of his demands at some point, I remembered. And honestly, your cooking was awful. Every night it was like torture. So many times I thought I'd rather eat frozen food. Why? I'd worked so hard, staying up late, pushing myself. I was in shock. That's all it was, shock. I couldn't think of anything to say back. I was too busy trying not to sob. So, you're really not coming back? Whatever, I've got other options. But you don't have anyone but me, right? What? You've got nothing, no money, nowhere to live, no education. Your language is rough, you get hysterical at the drop of a hat. I'm the only one who'd even put up with you. Got it. I didn't get it. I didn't understand anything this man was saying anymore. To think he saw me that way. To think he ever saw me that way. I was nothing to him. Tears poured down my face. I felt so ashamed of having devoted myself to someone like him, I wanted to die. Come on, let's go home. He grabbed my wrist, his grip painfully tight. Let's go, I said I'll take care of you. Come on, we're going. I was shaken. Humiliated, overwhelmed, I wanted to just collapse right there. But I knew now there were things I could never give in to. No, let go of me. I couldn't go with him. If I did, I'd never be myself again. Quit struggling. Let go of me. Let go of me. Help me. Help me. Help me, Yamamoto? Even as I struggled, I knew. Yamamoto wouldn't help me anymore. I'd already accepted it. I'd betrayed him, spat on his kindness. He must have felt completely betrayed by me. He must have been angry, so there was no way. But still, please. Let's go. He yanked hard on my arm. I stumbled, reflexively moving my feet to stay upright. One step, then another. I tried to resist, but there was no overcoming a man's strength. I couldn't win, no matter what. I hated how powerless I was, but even more than that, I hated how foolish I'd been. I hated myself for betraying Yamamoto. It's over, it's really over now. I know it, this is all my fault. Mine alone, I'm the one who threw away Yamamoto's help. I finally gave in, I gave up. crying, sobbing. I let him drag me forward, and then, "Hey, let go of her," a man's voice shouted out as he grabbed the bastard's wrist. That voice, that person, a voice I knew by heart, the one I wanted to talk to again, the one I wanted to see again, the one I needed to save me. It was Yamamoto. Who the hell are you? The bastard's voice was clearly panicked. Yamamoto was breathing hard, sweat pouring down the side of his neck. Just seeing him like that, panting, dripping with sweat, brought tears back to my eyes. He'd been searching for me all this time, ever since I ran away. All this time, I felt like crying again all of a sudden. She doesn't want to go with you. I can't just stand by and watch a crime in progress. Yamamoto pretended not to know me, playing the part of a stranger stepping in. And thinking about it, from an outsider's perspective, this was exactly the kind of scene that would justify a stranger stepping in. Yamamoto posed as a concerned passerby who couldn't overlook the situation. Typical Yamamoto calm even now. Sorry for the concern, we're just a couple. Lovers. Lovers? Damn it. Unless Yamamoto explained that we'd been living together the past 5 days, he couldn't publicly accuse this guy of what he'd done to me. She didn't look like a girlfriend to me. She was crying. Still is, in fact. She's just hysterical sometimes. It's embarrassing, but that's all. That's such a disgusting lie. Yamamoto, you see through it, right? Even so, I heard some pretty disturbing things. Things about hitting and kicking. That doesn't sound like a lover's quarrel to me. I'm sorry, I lost my temper. It happens, but it's never serious. Yamamoto fell silent, then let out a long sigh. So what? You're saying this is all just a lover's spat? Yes. Well, it sure didn't sound like one. All I heard were violent, dangerous words. I hit her, I kicked her. That's not how couples argue. Look, I'd appreciate it if you'd butt out of our personal matters. His face twisted with visible irritation. You're the one who dragged your mess into a public space, not me. Shut up. What else was I supposed to do? She's the one who throws these little fits, but I love her. That's what matters, right? I see, is that so? No, that's not true, right? Yamamoto, you're not buying this guy's pathetic excuses, are you? Yeah. You're right, this isn't something a stranger should interfere with. It felt like my heart was being dragged into hell. Even Yamamoto, the bastard smirked, a smug look of relief spreading across his face. Just looking at him made my blood boil. Yamamoto let out another sigh. Let's go to the police. What? The police? What? Don't tell me you didn't know. He looked stunned, completely blank, until finally, after a few moments, he seemed to snap back to reality. Why the hell should I have to go to the police? You're the one who said it, didn't you? That your relationship isn't any of a stranger's business. That's exactly why we're going. You said it yourself. This isn't something for me to meddle in. I saw what happened and assumed you were in the wrong, but clearly you have your own side of the story. Which means I've already lost the ability to view this fairly. So let's go somewhere that can, to the police. They'll assess everything from a neutral, third-party perspective. There's no need to go that far, is there? You two just had a screaming match in the middle of a residential neighborhood, and now there's a girl crying. Of course, it's something the police should be involved in. Only now did I realize we were smack in the middle of a neighborhood. I'd been so caught up I hadn't noticed. A few neighbors had come out of their homes and were watching the scene with worried eyes. This isn't such a big deal, right? No, it is a big deal. These days, even something as small as stepping on someone's foot on a train is enough to get the police involved. Still, hey, don't you think your responses have been kinda off? First you say strangers shouldn't interfere. Then, when I suggest getting a fair judgment from the authorities, you suddenly say that's unnecessary. So which is it? You think the two of you, her clearly resisting, and you clearly ignoring that, can actually settle this on your own. We can. Bullshit. If you could, it wouldn't have blown up in public like this in the first place. The guy clamped his mouth shut, face twisted like he'd bitten into a lemon. Honestly, you don't look like someone trying to resolve anything. To be blunt, everything you're saying is a mess. Try to be a little more consistent. He stayed quiet, but then suddenly glared at Yamamoto and shook his head, probably thinking silence would mean defeat. We're fine. We can work this out on our own. Can I ask you something? What now? Why are you so against going to the police? His face seemed to pale a little. They're far more impartial than someone like me. So why refuse them so strongly? That's. Is there some reason you can't go to the police? The air around him seemed to chill. Oh, of course not. I caught a glimpse earlier. There are quite a few bruises on her arm. A murmur spread through the small crowd. Sympathy for me, anger at him, voices rising quietly all around us. What's this? She fell. Some look fresh, others are starting to heal. That's. And this. And this. As she fell. She fell that many times. Yes. Then you never tried to help her, even though she was falling that often. That's. Why not? You said you were in a relationship with her. Why didn't you try to help someone you love when she kept falling like that? For a while, he just stared at the ground in silence. Then, with a long sigh, he slowly looked up. You've been going on. Hi. You've been going on and on. What the hell are you? He finally snapped, shouting at the top of his lungs. His shrill, high-pitched voice rang out across the nightlit neighborhood. We're lovers, we live together. We love each other, what we do is our business. You've got no right to stick your nose in. You love each other. I glanced at Yamamoto's face, then immediately looked away. His expression was too intense. I couldn't bear to meet his eyes. What? If you love her so much, where were you during those 5 days she was gone? The fragile mask he'd managed to maintain shattered in an instant. That claim, that he loved me, was his last shield, his final excuse. But it was just that, an excuse. I was looking for her. Did you file a missing person report? So you didn't. It's not like that. If you really loved her, wouldn't that be the first thing you'd do? Yamamoto's shout echoed through the street, full of weight and fury. Unlike this guy's childish outbursts, Yamamoto's voice carried real power. The man shrank visibly before him. If I didn't feel this overwhelming emotion, this sense that someone had stood up for me, I might have been afraid of Yamamoto in that moment too. That's how intense he looked right now. I couldn't help it. I was busy. You told her earlier, didn't you? What? You said she never did what you wanted, so that's why you lost your temper. He went silent. You're no different. You didn't do anything for her. You lived together, but you never reassured her, never supported her, never even tried to understand what she was going through. All you ever did was nitpick and push her down. Every mistake you made, you pinned on her, and now you say you love her. Don't make me laugh. The guy had completely shriveled up, tears pooling at the corners of his eyes. What you're feeling, that's not love, it's just harassment. You're like some brat who bullies others just to feel superior. Yamamoto's voice was harsh, his chest rising and falling as he spoke. He was that angry for my sake, for someone like me? What is this feeling? Why is my heart pounding like this? Say it again, Yamamoto said, glaring hard at him. What? You said it earlier, didn't you? You told me that this whole situation is her fault, so go ahead, say it again, right here, right now. After hearing everything I just said, repeat it, say it again. If you really think you can. That intent was clear in Yamamoto's voice, but the guy said nothing. Not to me, not to Yamamoto. His silence was as good as an admission of guilt. I'm sorry. The apology came out of nowhere. I'm sorry, I really am. All his bluster was gone. He lowered his head meekly, practically bowing to us. I'm sorry, sometimes I lose control. And in those moments, she always accepted me. She let me lean on her. That's why I took advantage of it. He spoke with a lonely look on his face, and for just a moment, I felt a twinge of sympathy, just a little. Of course, I didn't feel like going back to him. Yamamoto once explained it, the cycle of domestic violence. What Seiji-san was doing fit perfectly into that pattern. Say something sympathetic, earn a little pity, then do it all again. Maybe it really is like an illness. Maybe Seiji-san doesn't know how to vent his frustration any other way but to take it out on someone else. It's fine now. That's probably why I said what I did. Seiji-san didn't lift his head. I'm not coming back to you, but it's fine now. I know I don't have the right to say this. He looked up, his expression pained. But I want you to come home. I can't live without you. I don't need anything else, just you. Don't say things you don't mean. It's not a lie, it's not. Stop it. Please come back, Meg. His desperate pleading, he looked so broken. I'd be lying if I said my heart didn't waver. I had lived with him once. Maybe it wasn't love, not really, but I did choose to be with him at one point. And maybe if we lived together again. This time, it could be different. Hey. The cold splash of reality came from Yamamoto. What's that bandage on your neck? Earlier, when Seiji-san bowed his head, his collar had shifted, revealing the edge of something on his neck. Yamamoto had seen it. Seiji-san's face drained of color instantly. And me. I didn't go pale, but the heat inside me vanished. I'd just been desperately trying to escape him. And now, step by step, I found myself moving closer. I reached out, and without thinking about whether it had hurt, I yanked the bandage off his neck. There was no wound underneath. What was there was a passionate love bite. Let me be clear, I've never done anything like that to him, which means there's no need to wonder, no need to think about it. The answer is obvious. It's always been obvious. You didn't file a missing person report. Meg, wait, I can explain. So you weren't looking for me at all? No, that's not true. So all that stuff about being worried, it was a complete lie. This isn't what it looks like. I see. Meg. So that's it, everything finally made sense. Saturday, the one peaceful day in my week when I lived with him, he always said he had work and drove off in his car, every Saturday, without fail, but hold on. He didn't commute by car, he took the train, and he worked at a bank. Banks are usually closed on Saturdays. So then, where the hell was he going every weekend? So, you're not coming back, whatever, I've got other options. But you've only got me right. How could he say something like that? It hurt so bad, I cried when he said it, but now I get it. Now I understand why he could say something like that to me, why he thought I was replaceable. Of course, that's what it was. I thought I was the one who should feel guilty, living with someone I didn't even have feelings for, being a burden. But I didn't need to feel guilty at all, because he didn't love me either. Because he literally had someone else. A replacement for me, a woman dumb enough to leave such an obvious hickey on her neck, he actually had someone like that. I was just someone you used, wasn't I? Meg, wait. Meg, please wait. As he reached his hand out to me, I said, Die. Section, Audiobook by Masquerade at Masquerade Audiobooks. Chapter 9, The Queen in the Nude. Morning came after a night more intense than anything I'd ever experienced. I woke up at the usual time. The day after Megumi Hayashi stormed out of my house, I started my morning cleaning routine alone. It was Saturday. In other words, the first time in about a week I was back to living alone. Strange. Nothing had really changed, and yet the room felt a bit more spacious than usual. I guess I'd already started getting used to having her around. Lately, whenever I was quietly focused on cleaning like this, it had become the norm for her to wake up and start preparing breakfast. But today, I had no choice but to make breakfast myself. Reluctantly, I paused the cleaning and grabbed a cup of jelly from the fridge, grape-flavored. The taste was weak, not particularly good. After eating, my motivation to clean vanished, so I just sat at the table and turned on the TV. I let time slip away pointlessly as a morning talk show played in the background. I wonder when Hayashi will come back. Last night, after that whole mess at the shrine, she was finally taken to the police box by the officers who arrived late. I figured she didn't come home because it got so late. It would have been risky to let a girl wander around alone at night. Maybe they let her stay over at the station or something. But now, even though it's already this late, she still hasn't returned. It's starting to worry me. Don't tell me she got caught up in something weird again. Seriously, hurry up and get back already, you idiot. Grumbling in my head, I couldn't bring myself to do much of anything. I just stared blankly at the TV. Even seeing celebrities laughing on the show didn't make me feel like laughing along. Before I knew it, the clock had crept close to lunchtime. All right then. I let out a groan like some old man as I finally stood up. Creak. The door opened slowly with a creak and, oh, you're late. There she was. Hayashi, the one I'd been worried about, standing in the doorway. A bit of the tension in my chest eased as I greeted her casually. Yeah. But her voice lacked any energy. Hey, what's wrong? Don't tell me something happened again. Seeing her like that only made me more anxious, so I pressed her for an answer. But Hayashi just stood there at the entrance, saying nothing. Change of plans. Lunch could wait. I needed to find out what had happened to her. Last night, when she was being taken to the police box, I tried to go with her. But the officer stopped me. I figured that, since I was the one who intervened between those two arguing in the middle of a residential area, I should have been allowed to go. But after seeing the bruises on her arm, the officer probably decided it was something too serious to discuss in front of an outsider. I had no choice but to head home alone. Still, seeing her so down like this, I wish I'd just told them the truth and gone with her. In short, I want to make up for my mistake. Fast, that selfish thought was what drove me to ask again. What happened? Talk to me. Again, she didn't answer. At least come in. Can I? Hi. Without responding, Hayashi stepped into the room, her head still lowered. Well, at least she's home now. I felt a little relieved. Want to take a shower? Hi. It'll help you feel better. Again, she didn't reply, but she started moving. She headed for the bathroom. If she doesn't want to talk about it, then it'd be cruel to force it out of her. Nothing I can do. I decided to stop pressing her and make lunch instead. Thin walls. I could hear the sound of the shower through the wall from the kitchen. The shower stopped. I heard the bathroom door open. Then, without much of a pause, the door to the changing area opened too. Hey. It was Hayashi's voice. Yeah. I turned around and froze, dripping wet hair, smooth, healthy thighs, flushed cheeks. Hayashi walked into the kitchen wearing nothing but a bath towel. For some reason, she had her hands clenched tightly like a stubborn child, and her gaze stayed fixed on the floor. She didn't try to meet my eyes even once. She let out a soft breath, and I flinched. It felt like I was dreaming. Sure, when a guy and girl live under the same roof, stuff like this could happen in theory. But I never imagined Hayashi would pull something like this just from a short time living together. I mean, come on, back in high school, we were at each other's throats. There was no way, not in a million years would we ever be the kind of pair where she'd show up nearly naked in front of me. Wait a second. This is Hayashi we're talking about. Could she really be doing this? Trying to provoke me? Trying to seduce me? No way, right? Yeah, that's it. She probably just forgot to bring her clothes to the changing room. Ah, I see. That explains it. Honestly, what a klutz. Gehahaha. Come to think of it, she did come on to me the day she moved in. Hey, don't touch the towel. I shouted. As if to tell me I was wrong, she reached for the towel, like she was about to take it off. This is real. This is really happening, She's a freaking pervert. P put some clothes on. I blurted it out before I could stop myself. Hayashi bit her lower lip, eyes still downcast, fidgeting nervously. Somehow, the way she acted seemed innocent. She looked tense. That nervousness rubbed off on me too, and I started to feel weird. I slapped my cheeks to get a grip. Remember what I told you once. Told me what? My cheeks stung. You saved me. No, not just that. I owe you a debt so big, I probably couldn't repay it even if I had a lifetime. Huh. That's why. Hayashi took a deep breath. You have the right to do whatever you want with me, with my body. And I have an obligation to obey your words. Whatever you want, I'll do it. I have to do anything you ask. Just how far does she mean when she says, whatever? Well, considering she's standing in front of me dressed like that, she must have already braced herself to be used as some sort of outlet for my desires. In fact, maybe that's exactly why she's standing in front of me like this, because she wants me to. She once said she had nothing, and now it seems like she feels far more indebted to me than I ever realized. What could she possibly give back to me? This must be the conclusion she came to, in her own way. This might sound weird, but I'm confident. Her voice was heavy. He said my cooking was terrible, but when it came to this stuff, he always got excited. I stayed silent, so. No thanks. I cut her off, and she lowered her head. Why not? But her tone wasn't despondent. Why not? Why won't you? If anything, she sounded angry. Tears welled up at the corners of her eyes. Frustration, maybe? Was she really that confident? You're going to say I should treasure my body or something? It's too late for that. It's not like it's worth anything anymore. If it means I can stay here, I'll do anything. I can do anything. If it means she can stay here, huh? Just like I found the house strangely empty without her during the 5 days she was gone, maybe she felt the same. No, that might not be it. Because this girl. This is the only place I have. I've got nowhere else to go. Ah, I see. I did something awful to you. You took me in, even though you didn't have to. You reached out your hand to me, and I slapped it away and ran. I brought you the very trouble you were afraid would happen. She was feeling guilty. 1, for leaving the house without saying a word. 2, for getting found by her ex and causing a scene. And 3, for dragging me into it. So now, she thinks, that I've had enough of her, that I don't want her around anymore. And that's why she's doing something this extreme. You're an idiot, you know that. I'm not an idiot. Yes, you are, a complete moron. I'm not. You totally are. I let out a sigh, because you don't get it. Not one bit. I looked at Hayashi, who was wiping her tears, and continued. You're trying to drag me down to his level. His? The guy who tried to control you, who hurt you, who made you his possession. I stared straight at her. I'm not going to take away your freedom. I'm not going to control you, or tie you down, or claim you as mine. Because if I did that, I'd be doing exactly what he did. The very things I said were wrong. I don't believe for a second that what he did was right, so I won't do the same. If I used your body like that, I'd lose the right to condemn him. What is that even supposed to mean? It means what it means. Nothing more, nothing less. So go put some clothes on. What the hell? I said. I was ready to explain it again, as many times as it took for her to understand. But then I saw her face. Tears spilled down her cheeks in thick drops. So I couldn't say another word. Why? Her voice trembled. Why are you so damn kind? That was her breaking point. She dropped to the floor and sat down. Did I even say anything kind? Everything I'd said was just me pushing my own beliefs again. But somehow, it hit her really hard. You're seriously bawling. I couldn't help but flinch. She looked nothing like the so-called queen people used to call her back in high school. She looked like a kid, crying her heart out. Probably because the tension she'd been holding finally let go. Otherwise, I doubt I'd ever get to see her like this. A little, just a little, I felt relieved. I did say I'd help her after all. It wouldn't look good if I had nothing to show for it. So maybe I finally made good on that promise, just a bit. Though that sense of relief didn't last long, because calming down a tantrum-throwing Hayashi turned out to be way harder than expected. Section, sorry. About an hour later, she finally stopped crying and apologized. It's fine, just go put some clothes on already. Okay, achoo. With a cute sneeze, Hayashi, still wearing nothing but a towel, headed to the changing room. Her hair, once wet, was now dry, and her flushed skin had cooled down. I sighed and went back to the half-finished cooking I'd left in the kitchen. The rice I'd set in the pan for fried rice had gone a bit hard, but maybe the texture would actually turn out decent. I took some eggs from the fridge and resumed cooking. A little while later, Hayashi came out of the changing room. You didn't get too cold? Don't catch a cold, okay? I couldn't turn around since I had the stove going, but I could hear her footsteps stop behind me. Apparently, she was standing there, quietly, the whole time. There was no need for her to stay there. In fact, her presence was just making it harder for me to concentrate. Cooking wasn't exactly my strong suit. But if I told her to go away, she'd probably get all gloomy again. So I decided to just focus on finishing the meal. Luckily, fried rice doesn't take long. Once you throw in the eggs and ingredients and stir-fry it all, you're pretty much done. How much do you want to eat? I turned around at last after turning off the heat. As I expected, Hayashi was still behind me. Her head hung low, like a kid waiting to be scolded by a parent. She looked deeply uncomfortable. Standing there, doesn't it get tiring? Hey, Yamamoto. What? Is it really okay for me to stay here? Her words from earlier came back to me. She'd said something strange, something like, unless she satisfied my sexual desires, she had no right to stay here. A completely off-base conclusion. Seriously, I was exasperated. I'd thought I was pretty socially awkward, but this girl was on another level. Back in high school, she was always surrounded by friends, followed around by hangers-on, practically my polar opposite. And yet her thinking was always so extreme. What do you want, Hayashi? What's that supposed to mean? Huh? This is your apartment, is it? So why are you asking for my opinion? Whether I can stay or not, that's your decision to make. Was that something to get so angry about? I could only stare blankly as she suddenly lashed out. But seeing the intensity in her eyes, I could sense just how desperate she was. Still, this pointless argument, if someone had to be blamed, it wasn't me. It was Hayashi. I mean, she was the one being sheltered here, and now she was picking a fight with the person who took her in. But of course, I didn't really think that was the issue. Maybe to an outsider, it would look like I dismissed her serious question with a joke, that I lacked sincerity. But personally, I don't think that's accurate either. Come on, I already gave you my answer a long time ago. At this point, why are we even having this conversation? whether she can stay or not, I've already given her my answer. I told you, I'm your ally. If staying here lets you get away from that ex of yours, then it's no trouble for me to let you stay. I'd even lend you money if you promise to pay it back. I said that before, didn't I? Hayashi looked ashamed, like the memory had come back to her. That's why I asked you, do you want to stay or not? I've already made my intentions clear. The rest is up to you. What is that supposed to mean? I told you before too. Your life, if you're not the one making the decisions, then it's meaningless. That's why you have to be the one to decide whether you want to stay. What the hell? She's mad again. This is so unreasonable. Why? I've been completely consistent. Whether she agrees or not is another matter, but I've said the same thing from the start. If she doesn't like it, she'll just have to accept that this is who I am. Anyone would think this way, wouldn't they? You got involved with him because of me. He saw your face, you got dragged into trouble. So what? What if he stops targeting me and goes after you next? You don't know what he might do to you. And still, why would you keep sheltering me? Why, when I said I'd take you in, I already knew the situation. I offered despite that. You think I didn't realize I might get caught up in your problems too? I gave a tired sigh. I already assumed that might happen. I knew I might get dragged into this, but even knowing that, I still decided to help you. So no, I'm not going to change my mind over something like this. That's all. Why? She looked like she was about to cry again. Her voice trembled as she stared down at the floor, blaming me with her tone. Why would you go that far for me, someone like me? It's simple. I smiled, letting you stay, keeping you out of trouble. Living with you for a while, I can do all of that, that's why. She looked dumbfounded. If there's something I can do, and I have the chance to do it, I usually will. If I see someone slacking on housework, I think, don't make other people do something you could do yourself. And when I see someone dumping their work on others, it pisses me off. So if it's something I can do, I usually help. Because if I start shirking things I can handle myself, if I force them on someone else, then I'd have no right to complain about the kind of people I can't stand. And then it hit me. Actually, that's not the only reason. What? That hamburger steak you made, I want to eat it again. As selfish and self-serving as always. And yet, Hayashi didn't get mad or exasperated. Instead, for some reason, her eyes began to glisten with tears. Hey, Yamamoto. Yeah. Then, if it's something you can do, you'll help no matter what. If I make you another hamburger steak, will you do anything I ask? Of course. She wiped her tears with her hand. Well, I can't hand over money, or give up the apartment, or anything like that. Then, there are two things I want to ask. What? Even when I asked, she didn't answer right away. She kept her head down, stayed silent, wavered, and then, as if steeling herself, she lifted her gaze. I want you to let me stay here a little longer. Got it. I agreed immediately. Not that I needed to. Like I've said, I already intended to let her stay. Still, when she heard my reply, she looked genuinely happy. She looked like she was trying desperately to hold back a smile. After a moment of silence, she fixed me with a serious look again. Then she spoke. She said there were two things she wanted from me. One was to let her stay here, and the other. Honestly, there's still a part of me that hasn't come to terms with everything. Hayashi lowered her head again and began to speak quietly. I can't help it. Because of him, I lost so much. My phone, college, friends, family, there are things I'll probably never get back. All because of one bad decision, I've lost so much. I'm scared. I'm scared, Yamamoto, of facing what I've lost. Even so, Hayashi lifted her face. Her expression was one of resolve. I'm going to file a police report. Right after I took her in, I'd tried to convince her to report her ex to the police. But it hadn't worked. She'd refused and I'd given up, at least outwardly. Behind the scenes, I kept trying to find a way to change her mind, but I never expected that she'd be the one to say it on her own. From the way she phrased it, I realized something. Back then, it wasn't facing him that scared her. It was facing what she'd lost because of him. That must have been her final line of defense. To maintain her mental balance, the only thing she could do at the time was avert her eyes from her situation. To not look at the reality of her own suffering, to not think about it. That was the only way she could endure. But now, she had finally come to terms with it. She had found the resolve to face it head-on. That's why she told me she was going to the police. All right. There was no reason for me to refuse. She was the one who had suffered, the one who'd been abused, controlled, and hurt. My opinion didn't matter. If she chose to file a report, then that choice was already my answer too. But that made me wonder. Why tell me now? What was she expecting from me? Hayashi. Yamamoto, please. She bowed her head slowly. Come with me to the police station. Without waiting for a reply, she continued. I know I should probably go alone. To show that she means it. But I'm scared, I'm still scared. To admit that fear. When the moment comes, I might lose my nerve and run away again. To confess such a fragile state of mind. But I don't want to lose anything else. Even though she was scared. Even though she was ashamed. Please, Yamamoto. Still, Hayashi bowed her head to me. It must have taken a tremendous amount of resolve. Facing her reality. Realizing how dire her situation really was. Even so, she lowered her head to me, determined. Looking at her, my answer was already decided. It had been from the start. But I hesitated to speak. I didn't show it, but something was rising up inside me. The girl I'd run into again at the convenience store, the tragic girl, was once known as the queen of our school. There were times I felt helpless seeing how much she'd changed. There were times I wished she'd fight back, stop giving up. There were times our shared meals felt awkward. There were times I didn't know how to deal with her when she ignored my advice. There were times the room felt a little too spacious without her in it. Ah, I see now. From the bottom of my heart. She'll be okay now. Hayashi will be okay. Unlike when we first met again, her eyes now carried a quiet strength of will, and I was sure of it. All right. I finally got the words out, finally gave my answer. Her face looked tense. Her expression stiff, as if she couldn't even look me in the eye. Like she'd braced herself for rejection, fearing the worst. When she heard my response, she looked shocked, then overjoyed, almost about to cry, then smiled again. Thank you, Yamamoto. Her voice trembled. Her eyes glistened with tears, but she smiled as she said it. She had faced her reality, made up her mind, reached out for help and found her answer. Whether that answer was right or wrong, I don't think she'll regret it anymore. But Hayashi, don't get the wrong idea. The reason you were able to take that step forward wasn't because of me. It was because you looked at your situation, struggled with it, and chose to change. You made the choice. All I did was give you the information to make a choice you wouldn't regret. If the choice you made moved you to tears, then it's because you had the courage to find that answer yourself. There's no need to thank me. Though, come to think of it, that's the first time you've thanked me, isn't it? I gave a wry smile. Chapter 10, The Queen Who Returns Once More. I let out a huge yawn as I stared blankly at the surveillance monitor in the break room at the back of the convenience store. Normally, I'd be a little more alert while on the job, but today, my focus was all over the place. I felt like I could drift off into dreamland the second I let my guard down. I usually go to bed early and get up early, so I'm rarely even awake at this hour. But even when I stayed up late once in a while, I never used to feel this drowsy. Still, maybe it was just because today had been such a whirlwind. I was fighting off a crushing wave of sleep, and despite being on the clock, all I could do was try not to pass out. I could make a few excuses to explain why I was so sleepy right now. For example, today I went with Hayashi to the police to file a report against her ex for everything he did to her. Or, I got mistaken for her boyfriend at the station and got some seriously cold stares. Or, clearing up that misunderstanding with her took twice the effort and left me completely drained. Basically, a lot happened. But trying to explain it all here would just sound like whining. I had other options. I could have let Hayashi go alone, or we could have pushed the visit to another day. But I didn't pick either of those options, because either one would have only made her more anxious or kicked the problem further down the road. Nothing good would have come from that. That's why I made the decision I did. And that's how I ended up in this miserable state. For me, solving Hayashi's problems was a higher priority than this part-time job. That's all. If I didn't want to be in this position, I should have prioritized work. Simple as that. The fact that I was already bracing myself for the possibility of dozing off just proved how bad I was at this. Even I was disgusted with myself. Still, the late-night shift at this convenience store was as dead as ever. No one had come through the doors for a while now. It's no wonder I'm getting sleepy, I grumbled internally, not even sure who I was blaming. Right around that moment, the chime of the automatic doors snapped me back to consciousness. It was the catchy electronic sound that played whenever someone entered. I'd been half asleep, so it hit especially loud. For a second, I felt like chewing out whoever had just walked in. I was this close to falling asleep. Thanks for ruining it. Sure, I'd just been complaining that the lack of customers was making me drowsy, but that didn't mean I actually wanted someone to show up. Still half asleep, I rubbed my eyes and shifted my gaze to the grainy footage on the surveillance monitor. The customer was a woman wearing a plain white t-shirt and a pair of shorts. Her long hair was tied back as she walked around the store. Kind of dangerous for a woman to be out alone this late at night. Then again, it was Saturday night. No school or work for most people tomorrow. Maybe she was on her way home from a night out. But if that were the case, her outfit looked more like pajamas. Strangely, my sleepiness vanished. Maybe because her presence made me think of someone else. Come to think of it, it was just a week ago that I ran into Hayashi here. A random, trivial coincidence brought us back together. A random moment got us talking again. A random moment revealed what she was going through. The time was just about the same, too. This hour, right before the night shift ends, is when I always let my guard down the most. It's the easiest time to lose focus. No way she's another domestic violence victim, right? No, come on. What are the odds that another person in my neighborhood would have gone through something like that? Even I had to scoff at my own wild assumptions. The woman continued wandering around the store. Magazine section, daily necessities. Snacks, desserts, bento corner. She moved from shelf to shelf, browsing aimlessly. Looked like the type who didn't know where what she wanted was, so she was just wandering until she found it. People like that take a while, but once they find what they're after, they head straight for the register. Still, if she knew what category the item was in, there's no need to be going in circles. I mean, who walks around the household goods section looking for potato chips? Honestly, she looked like someone who hadn't been to a convenience store in a long time and was just aimlessly browsing out of habit. Hi. Wait a second. The woman found some toothpaste in the daily goods aisle and headed for the register. I shot up from my seat, left the break room, and made my way to the counter. Oh, there you are. Hayashi, what are you doing here at this hour? The customer who'd entered the store in the middle of the night was none other than Hayashi. Now that I looked, she was wearing her usual sleepwear. Without answering my question, she placed the toothpaste on the counter. We ran out of toothpaste. Wait, really? I hadn't noticed at all. Then again, when you live alone, you don't run out of toothpaste that often. Oh, right. I'm not living alone anymore. I forgot it gets used up twice as fast now. If you told me, I could have picked some up on my way home. I don't have your contact info. Right. Her phone was still broken from when her ex smashed it. Maybe it's time you got a new phone. I'm fine. It's not like my life's hard without one. But won't it be tough losing touch with your friends? I'm not sure. Hi. I guess they weren't that great of friends to begin with. Yeah. Probably best not to push that topic. Well, I do think it's kind of a pain not being able to contact you. You think so? Yeah. I see. An odd tension hung between us for a moment. Then I realized there was something I needed to say. More importantly, don't go wandering around alone like that again. Why was I so worried about her? We still don't know where he is. Back then, just before the police arrived, her ex had blended into the crowd of onlookers and fled the scene. The sound of sirens had drawn close, and we let our guard down for just a second. That's all it took. At first, I couldn't believe it. Just when I thought he'd finally be questioned by the police, he slipped away. According to what Hayashi told me earlier today, the reason she'd gotten home so late that night was because she'd gathered the courage to go to his house with the cops. But he wasn't there. He'd vanished without a trace. The way Hayashi looked when she realized he was gone, that sense of disappointment must have been overwhelming. Well, I'm sure it'll be fine for a while. You're being optimistic again. I replied, exasperated. Just because you filed a report doesn't mean you can let your guard down, you know. I know. If she really knew, she probably wouldn't be here in the first place. I couldn't quite figure out what she was thinking. Well, whatever. Sorry about the toothpaste. Why, yeah, you should be. If I come home all sleepy and there's no toothpaste, you're the one who's gonna be in trouble, you know. True, can't argue with that. She puffed out her cheeks like a sulking kid, and I nodded along. Really, thanks for getting it. Hayashi smiled and gave a little nod. It felt a bit strange. Normally, this girl would be teasing me or giving me grief if I ever thanked her seriously. Then again, maybe she was feeling something similar about me. Like, who would have thought this guy would thank me so sincerely? This place really doesn't get many customers, huh? Yeah, it's always like this around this time. Huh. So you've just been bored, huh? She grinned. Well, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't. Thought so? Then hey, how about I keep you company? I'll pass. You should go home and sleep. Staying up late's bad for your skin. It's fine. Staying up this late once in a while won't kill me. You think so? I know so. Well, if she says so, I guess that's how it is. Besides, you're still up too. I'm working. You don't have to work at this hour, do you? Don't be stupid. Late night shifts pay well, of course I do. That's such a you reason. Such a me reason, huh? I didn't really get it. But there was no point pressing her on it, so I pulled my wallet from my pocket. No way I was letting her pay. That was my stance anyway. You didn't have to, it's just toothpaste. It's fine, I use it too. Okay then, I'll take you up on that. Good. I handed the toothpaste over to Hayashi. That should have been all she came for. But for some reason, she didn't move from the counter. Not going home. Why? I told you I'd keep you company, didn't I? Wait, that was decided already. Then don't make it sound like a question. Seriously, this girl, only in moments like these does she act like her high school self, like she owns the place. Well, I guess I am kind of glad she's offering to chat while I'm trying to stay awake. Hayashi cleared her throat dramatically. Yamamoto-kun. How long have you been working here? What's with the sudden interview? Awa, just answer me. About 2 months, I guess. How many times have you gone back to your hometown since moving here? What's with all the questions? Ugh, come on. Not even once. I see, are you in any clubs? Nope. Any other part-time jobs? Nope. Volunteer work? None. Hobbies? Cleaning. Special skills? Cleaning. You're a cleaning freak. Is that supposed to be a compliment? Hayashi laughed. I gave her a flat look. What even is this quiz? I couldn't tell what she was getting at. After laughing for a bit, Hayashi looked at me with a serious expression. And when I saw that gaze, I remembered how she used to glare at me in high school. Back then, we weren't close. Not at all. Honestly, I think she hated me. I lost count of how many times she gave me that look filled with hostility. She'd click her tongue if I did anything, and there was a time I actively tried to keep my distance from her. If I told my high school self that one day she'd look at me like this, serious, calm, he'd probably snort and laugh in disbelief. That thought struck me. Remember what I said once. Hayashi gave a wry smile. What? Back in high school, I wondered why I never tried to talk to you more. Oh. If I had, maybe our relationship would have turned out differently. Maybe, but it's kind of pointless to dwell on that now. Yeah, it's just hindsight. She beat me to it. I stayed silent. It's someone's fault, really. Hayashi began to speak. I think regret is important, but I've also come to feel that it's a waste to let it eat you up. She said it bashfully. Because no matter how much you dwell on it, nothing changes. She said it like it was silly. But still, because I regretted things and struggled with them, I realized something important. She said it with a smile. I think that something was my relationship with you. Looking me straight in the eye, Hayashi went on. It's a strange feeling. If you told high school me that I'd ever feel this way, she'd probably laugh it off. She took a deep breath, and as she exhaled, she looked right at me. I want to get to know you better. I never imagined I'd feel that way. Back in high school, our relationship wasn't even worth talking about. But now, we'd reunited, and though it had only been a few days, we'd lived together. Our relationship was twisted and unbalanced. This kind of life we had was bound to end someday. I knew that. But even so, it was proof that we'd made something different from how things were in high school. Proof that now existed. And because we had this now, I could be sure of one thing. This strange cohabitation of ours, it's going to last a little longer. And if it's going to last, then it's going to last. That I was sure of. Just like she was, I was certain of it. Faced with this relationship that would continue for a while, Hayashi seemed to feel something. She wanted to know more about me. I'm not exactly an interesting person, you know. I said it like I was throwing cold water on her curiosity. I've lived in a world completely different from yours. I've never been ashamed of that, but someone like you, I doubt you'd find my life fun at all. Yamamoto. What? Can't help it. That's just how I feel. Don't act so smug about it. I sighed a little, but yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, if she really felt that way, then there was no helping it. Everyone's been there, feeling something they can't explain. Acting on feelings they don't even understand themselves. That was her, right now. Fine, all right, I'll prove to you that it was just a passing whim. The best way to make someone give up on you, show them exactly how wrong they were. So I challenged her, and I smiled. Now that's more like it. Hayashi smiled too, a happy, genuine smile. Well then, looking forward to it, Yamamoto. Yeah. Hey, Yamamoto. What about you? She looked calm. Do you want to know more about me? But there was a hint of fear in her expression. What did you think about living with me? Living with Hayashi? Spending those 5 days in my apartment together, how did I really feel about it? Well, first off, major headache. Ugh. You, of all people, even though I took you in, you'd go out while I was at college, and then say you wanted to get a part-time job. You were obviously panicking. You nearly tripped rushing around half asleep. It was nerve-wracking, honestly. Sorry, but well, it wasn't bad. I see. She smiled again softly. A peaceful smile, a peaceful moment, a peaceful relationship. Yamamoto, thank you. It was the second time she'd said that. Thanks to you, I was saved. Don't get the wrong idea. Huh. Filing the report wasn't the goal. The real end is when he gets what he deserves. No, that's not what I meant. Then what? I think I'll probably go through a lot more stuff from here on out. Hard things, sad things, painful things. Yeah, probably. And every time something like that happens, I think I'll be scared. I'll want to run, I'll freeze up. But her face didn't look sad at all. But you'll reach out to me when that happens, right? She said it with a smile. You'll help me, right? Hayashi, that's not how it works. I shook my head. Whether or not I help you, that's not something I get to decide alone. To begin with, I didn't have the resources or power or money to save others. But even so, what do you want me to do? Hayashi gave a small knowing smile. I guess what I mean is, if you need me, I'll do what I can. It's not about bravery or being dependable or anything like that. When you're in trouble, you rely on someone else. When you can't handle something on your own, you ask for help. And if someone turns to you, you stand by them, support them, help them. That's just basic human decency. And if I ever lost even that, then I wouldn't be me anymore. That's why I'll help. I'll always do what I can, because at some point I made that decision. You're not very honest, you know. Maybe not, but I heard there's someone out there who wants to know more about an uninteresting, stubborn guy like me. Must be a real weirdo. Totally hopeless. Then someone's gotta step in and help her out. We smiled at each other. Yamamoto. Yeah. From now on, please take care of me. Yeah, you too. Hey, Yamamoto. What? What do you want for dinner tonight? The morning of the 7th day, since I took in Megumi Hayashi. We were talking in the same convenience store where we first reunited. Back then, we were just a clerk and a customer. That part hadn't changed. But over this past week, we'd learned more about each other, more than when we met again, and more than during our high school years when we couldn't stand each other. Like how the proud, aloof queen from back then could smile so gently now. What did you think about living with me? It was embarrassing, so I lied a little earlier. Over the past 5 days, Hayashi did a lot for me. She worried about my finances and even offered to get a part-time job. To lessen my burden, she volunteered to take on all the housework except cleaning. She worried about my lunch situation and started making me bento every day. Last night, she cooked a delicious dinner just for me. Taking her in, it had all just been a matter of circumstance. Back in high school, she was known as the queen, always strong-willed and domineering. For the first 3 days or so, after I let her stay, I found myself exasperated with how she never listened to anything I said. I'd think about the days ahead and wonder how much trouble I was in for. And yet, I never imagined that in just 5 days I'd end up feeling this way. If I told my high school self about this, he'd probably laugh and say, "No way." I let out a wry smile at the thought. Living with the arrogant queen from high school is surprisingly not uncomfortable as I expected. Afterward, to those who have followed my work on web novel sites, thank you always for your support. I'm Miss One to Daziman. To be honest, even though I've written a ton of stories on web novel sites, I've never once felt any real attachment to my characters or stories. This one was the same, at first. My thoughts on the protagonist were like, man, this guy's got such a pain-in-the-ass way of thinking. As for the heroine, I kept asking myself, what even is a queen supposed to be? I tried to force that queenly vibe over and over, then gave up just as many times. But then something changed. I sincerely hope the day comes when we can meet again. To everyone who read this, I'm really, really sorry. End of Volume 1.